case to be made that there would be a bias and a skewedness towards students who have the access and ability to fill out the form. Like obviously who has access to consistent Wi-Fi, which is a concern we've heard many times. But more importantly, there's just no time to do this. Academic Senate is like waiting for our letter now. Like I was on the phone with the chair of the Academic Senate yesterday. Um, I just don't think it's feasible. Just to be straightforward. And then also, I wanted to echo. I think Naomi said and Lalo had said stuff about the productivity of reading responses from the Google form. I also wanted to echo that. I mean, I'm looking through the Google form and have read every single response on the Google form, and like I think we all know. I mean, Mill and I know like you did your due diligence of reading through the form as well. Like we know for a fact there's other students who have written long testimonies in this form in advocacy of universal pass. I mean, I'm looking at one right now who lost their job, who has unaccommodating professors this upcoming quarter, who doesn't have consistent Wi-Fi, and who feels like it would be unfair to be graded in an opt-in system. So I just want to point out, like, I definitely understand like the intention of wanting to read students' personal stories, but also like that in this form that we have, there are hundreds of students on, I think, both sides that have given testimonies on both sides. So I do want to be mindful of that. Um, the other one thing I want to say is like, we keep talking about who's going to be impacted. And I think everyone has been impacted. Like, I think we all agree with that. And I appreciated Mahika saying that. I think like what really has made me more of a proponent of a at least default system for pass no record, but at maximum a universal um, proposal would be that everyone has been impacted, but that some are more impacted than others. And that's always the case. Like, that's always the case at a university in terms of equitability, but that's amplified right now. And the students who don't have an actual choice to even explore letter grading in the first place are the students that I'm most concerned about. And I think that those students are given a very surface level choice right now. I don't think it's a real choice. I think it's a surface level choice where students who literally do not have the capability to do letter grading are put at a disadvantage. And that's not students who can work hard or not work hard. I'd like to think that all students want to work hard. It's students who literally do not have the capability or capacity to take part in something like that. Um, I also want to say that I would argue that there's a very strong case to be made for the wellness of students and like the health of students that pass no record as a universal is a good thing. And I would say there's like numerous studies to back that up that I would encourage you all to look at, like both in this is purely coincidental, but one by the University of Kentucky and one by Princeton both looked at this exact question and found that students' wellness is better when they're not graded on a letter grading system. Or that not that their wellness is better, that they are able to focus more on the academic themselves instead of their letter grade. Um, and then also, I think like the option in most case, once again, like that when we talked about this option, Shahama, you asked a question about what's the concern with giving students an option. I think once again, like what I keep asking myself is who has that option, which students have that options, which students are hurt that don't have that option, and how badly are they impacted. Who has that option is not every student. Like maybe on a surface level choice, when we tell the student body, you have an opt in system, you can choose between letter grading or pass no record, you're telling the whole student body that. But when a student doesn't have consistent access to Wi-Fi, when there is no guarantee that their lectures are recorded, when we have students going home to domestic abuse situations, when we have students who are facing eviction, when we have students who are losing their jobs, it is incredibly surface level to say that they have an option to choose letter grading. Like, and that once again has nothing to do with their capacity to work. That has to do with their literal capability to take part in academics at a university. And I would really encourage us to like look at that. The last thing I'll say is like I am personally open to exploring some sort of pathway for students who are like really in need of a GPA to unmask that. Like I would be open to talking about that. And I agree completely with Kalechi, most importantly, that we need to move forward and look at the really like the meat of this letter and like start talking about what we're in favor of and what we're not in favor of, because like we could sit here all night and deliberate this. I know like Lily and I are on like Eastern and Central time, so I know we don't want to do that. um I think like what I've seen, just so we can like maybe move the conversation in this direction, is that there has been a general agreement in that a default or not universal, a default pass no record has been something that more of us have been willing to get behind, and I'm speaking to council members. Um, so I want to like see if I want to throw that out and make sure that's something that like maybe all of us are more willing to get behind. I know I've talked with Millen about this and other council members who have like kind of been dialoguing with me. So I really want to like get productive in terms of what are council members willing to tolerate and not tolerate, just bluntly speaking. And I think like a baseline of where we need to like maybe first start to see if there's agreement is if pass no record should be the default for students, as is like at Berkeley, for example. So I'll leave it there. Um, I'm gonna go to Millen, then Kalechi, then Lily.
Okay. Hi. Can you hear me? I don't know if it's on. Okay, cool. So I just want to first address like, and I also agree that like we should turn this conversation into what we support and like relooking at the letter, but just like to kind of defend myself based on that, I think that like one, I don't think that it's right to say that we shouldn't share specific testimonials from the input form because the input form was sent out to receive like student personal stories, and I think that like sharing specific testimonials is much more strong than like the 15 of us going back and forth about our own personal opinions. I also just like to say that like there seems to be like a dismissive nature of the input form, and the purpose of the input form was to get feedback from the student body because that's what we as student leaders were elected to do. Like we weren't elected to make decisions off of what we believe was best for the student body. We were elected to be that liaison and like that decision maker based on personal stories that we've heard. Um, Also, like it's been addressed multiple times with some of you that like the input form isn't entirely right because students that would support universal pass don't have access to it. But I'd also just like to say that students that don't support, or sorry, students that support universal pass don't have access to it. But I like there's also students that support opt-in that don't have access to it. Like we don't have the means or like the knowledge or the expertise to decide what students would want, especially for those students that don't have access to it. Because like there is a student that one of my friends told me that hasn't had time to fill out the form, but she is in support of opt-in. So I'd also just like to say that like that assumption in itself is wrong. Um, in terms of like the letter, I know that we had talked about it earlier. I think as of right now, it has like universal pass with a narrow petition for unmasking. I'd like to like revisit that and talk about maybe a simpler and like easier unmasking option that doesn't require the petition. Just from like the feedback we've gotten from the public comments that we've heard, I just think that even a petition would limit a lot of students in their agency and their choice, and we should maybe consider just doing like the unmasking option like Michigan and UC Berkeley did.
Sweet. Thank you, Millen. Um, okay, we're going to Kalechi, then Lily.
Lily can go before me.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just going to read a statement I wrote because I have a lot of thoughts and like this topic makes me quite emotional. And just to reiterate, I would benefit from letter grades, but I'm not doing what benefits me. I'm advocating for what benefits the campus whole, in my opinion. So with that being said, I personally am struggling with the non-linear logic between the advocacy we as a council did during finals to the advocacy we're doing now. We spent all of finals week advocating for professors to do what was equitable and do what was fair by canceling finals or providing alternative grading methods, and we had the student support behind us. I personally stayed up until 5 a.m. writing the letter, not doing my finals, because I knew students were in need of support. They were struggling emotionally, technologically, physically, and or mentally with the COVID-19 pandemic. And the pandemic, as Isabel said, is only going to get worse. We saw how professors reacted during finals week. We have a mirror image of what's going to happen throughout the rest of the quarter. There is going to be inequity in the grading of professors across the board and the way they choose to give lectures. One of my professors is recording lectures, however, the remainder aren't. That's not fair for every student. We don't know how professors will act throughout the crisis, or if some professors might even fall ill and might not be able to teach. How does that affect grading then? And I can foresee a future in which students are begging us to advocate on their behalf if a professor is not being accommodating when we are trying to advocate as a preventative measure now. And lastly, I'm disheartened by the argument that letter grades is a main motivator for a majority of students, because that's not why we go to school, or at least it's not why I go to school. I go to school to learn and advance myself as a human being and as a student. I've received bad letter grades in some of my favorite classes because I seek the advancement of knowledge more than I seek an A. Doing an opt in system is the very bare minimum. So, where is our equity now?
Thank you, Lily. Kalechi.
Okay. I'm going to start by responding to some points that have been made since when we put our ones in here, a bit of time passes. Um, so first thing is, I don't know, I'm not really understanding your point necessarily, Mahika, because I don't know, I'm trying to understand how I guess taking a class for a pass instead of a letter grade means you can no longer participate in that class, or like you're necessarily demotivated, I guess, because I do think that's like, I mean, it's if it's a viewpoint, it's a viewpoint, it's a valid viewpoint. But I do think like choosing not to participate in a course that you otherwise could participate because you don't like it, or I guess like are demotivated by not having your preference, is very different, and a privilege to not being able to participate because you're now homeschooling a kid or have coronavirus or you're supporting a family. So I don't know, I just didn't really get that, and I wanted to guys like express that I'm not, I still think like while I think that's like a valid feeling to have, like you may not have as strong as of an incentive, that's still like, I guess that incentive is very different from like somebody, I guess, losing the choice here. Like you don't have the choice when you're like pushed into a corner, like, and cannot succeed, versus like I wanted a letter grade and I can't have when I've chosen to disengage from my class. Like that is definitely a privileged position, I think. Um, Unless like I'm misunderstanding what you meant by it. And then I think, Shahama, I know you were saying like you didn't understand there not being an opt-in. And like I felt that way at first, definitely, because I think universal pass with an opt-in or out or whatever seems like the solution until you start talking about grad school in that scenario. Because I think we're trying to preserve choice, but like the reality is that like technically having the ability to choose does not mean you have an actual choice when your circumstances back you into a corner where like poverty or home issues or whatever and this pandemic converge. Like you don't have a choice there because of what you're going through, even though you got to choose to take a pass no pass. And then when you're being graded like amongst your peers for grad school and they were able to take a letter grade, you took a PNR or whatever, you are now at a disadvantage to them. So it's like, yes, you did get to choose. Like a person is going to choose their letter grade if that maximizes their benefit. A person is going to choose pass no record if that minimizes the damage that it does to their GPA. But I just don't see that as being choice if someone is like kind of backed into a corner where they have to make this choice. And I just feel like this is a microcosm of how inequity is replicated in larger structures. And like I know we can't solve all of that, but I guess I'm looking at that, and I think a lot of people are concerned about who I guess don't support universal PNR are worried about grad school. But then I guess what about grad school for your disadvantaged peers? Like what then? I have a hard time not or seeing how like that viewpoint reconciles that. So I think like it's interesting to see all this emphasis on grad school, but like there's no emphasis on grad school for like your disadvantaged peers who are pushed into like pushing PNR. Like where? But as far as this like conversation goes, I think like at this point we understand that people have different reasons. Like we understand the broad ways in which people will be impacted, and I think right now we like everyone's opinions. You're great, love you all, but I do think like we're refusing to actually evaluate these reasons because we collected feedback like for a reason, and we already knew like we've had this conversation for quite a bit of time now, and we have shared a lot of our reasons for support or not for support. Um, but I do think like I'm trying to figure out like what type of decision we're actually trying to make with this information, because we can share people's testimonials. Like these are reasons we anticipated, these are reasons we knew, we have them in front of us. And I guess are we at some point, I guess, going to come to a conclusion about which of these reasons has more weight? Because right now I feel like we just keep going like this is a reason, this is a reason. I'm pretty sure at this point we all know our reasons, but like what are we evaluating as the deciding factor in how we move forward with this? So again, we're not here all night.
Brandon?
I think Kaleshi made a very good point at the end. I'm wondering if if council members are prepared to take a vote on one system or another, because, I mean, actually, Joanna hasn't spoken yet, so maybe we should wait, but I think we should consider moving towards a vote soon so we can get out of here at a reasonable hour.
Okay. I agree. We should get out of here um, at some point as well. I just want to say like this because like I keep hearing this argument, and I think Kalechi addressed it as well. Is like this notion about like graduate schools and how like people are very concerned about grades, specifically in the context of graduate schools. When we're looking at the graduate schools that have actually come out with language in regard to the system, every single one of them has said they will only consider pass no pass grading if it's the policy of the institution to do so. Harvard has said that. Harvard Medical School has said that. Stanford graduate programs have said that. I don't I think like that's why, back to what I was saying again, is like now that we're moving forward, I think we really need to like first take a stance on if we're saying if there is a universal agreement that pass no record should be a default. Um so I want to like gauge that still. Um because like before we move into it, should there be a way for students to choose to like access their GPAs, I think we first need to think about like, is there should pass no record be a default, and like is council okay with taking that stand? My my impression is that that was something that we were all more in agreement on. I'm not sure if everybody was in agreement on. Um, the only other thing I would say is like, I, Orion, I just want to say is like universal academic renewal. I don't think necessarily like addresses the issue from my understanding, just because like it still sets up a status quo in the first place of there being students who are choosing two different options. So like that would be my concern moving forward. So yeah, I just want this to be productive, and like for us to like start, like Brandon and Kalechi said, maybe like thinking about like what we're willing to move forward with and whatnot. But we haven't heard from Johnny yet, so Jonna, you have it.
Um, I think to echo what Kalechi said, I feel a little bit more concerned about what the process is going to be like, especially if people want to start taking votes. Not now. I wouldn't encourage it now. Um, but just how, like, are we going to be reviewed? Like, is the process everyone shares their concerns from council, then we read the letter and then we take a vote on it? Or like, because I'm still confused, I think, and I already said what I said in the group me, and some of my like, I'm still making up my mind. So I, yeah, I'm not. I don't want to. I don't feel ready yet to elaborate on like the different things that I think, and I don't know if it's even necessary because it's gonna come down to a vote. So I just would rather focus on, like, I know Kim hasn't spoken yet either necessarily. Um, I think a good break for me right now would be to hear from Ebby, to just like hear what he has to say, um, just so I can like kind of hear a different perspective that's not y'all's voices for a second. And lastly, a comment towards Robert. I would appreciate if like you didn't try to like debate or like add a comment onto like every person's like concerns. I think it feels like there's pressure. Like if you say something, at least on mine, like if I say something to oppose your viewpoint right now, you're gonna make a comment about it. And I don't want that, period. But I also just like don't think like I want to have a debate on council about this. I want to hear what people are saying so that we can help make up our minds necessarily rather than debate everyone until we get to a certain point. Because I understand consensus. We want to move forward on within consensus with this, but also like for me, like that's also part of like my vote right now is like my viewpoints, the viewpoints of the public, viewpoints of literally everyone and their mom, and just like, but also like this what the vote was going to be. So like just for the sake of like time, like I would really encourage you, Mr. President, to just like be more mindful of that because I think it only adds to the amount of time because I'm pretty sure everyone knows your viewpoints are by this point. It's just like I want to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And before we go to, I first want to ask like Millen and other folks if they're okay with Abby speaking, because I also appreciate the point that Millen gave earlier is just making sure we have like a diversity of perspective as well. So I like don't want to do that unless like Millen's okay with it. But then also I realized that I had skipped Kim, so I apologize for that, Kim. So Kim, is it okay with our? We can go to Kim first, and then just like make sure before like Joanna, if we call on Ebby, that Millen, like and other, not just Millen, but other folks are okay with that. Just because of that argument of like diversity of perspective, I don't want to include like a voice without making sure that like other people are okay with that too. So Kim.
Yeah, so I would just like to echo what's been being said. I think for us, it was very important to get the students' input um, about universal pass slash no record. But I think it's also very important for the 15 of us to really like think about how we have claimed throughout the year that we are advocating for marginalized communities and really when making a vote really think about those individuals who may not have an option next quarter, which may put them to at a very disadvantaged situation. But I also agree that we are going in circles, and I think I would like to suggest like one way that we could be more productive is if we look at the letter and look at the the demands that we have. Maybe we could start off with the other ones, the other bullet points as well. Look at those, make a consensus on which ones we are keeping, and then continue deciding what we are going to do in terms of universal pass and no record. And like Joanna was saying, I would love to personally hear from Abby as well, if it's okay with the rest of council. That's it.
Yeah. So before, yeah, like Millen, other folks who have been kind of
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be good to hear from someone else that led it. I'm not sure what the timeline is of when we're going to send this out or what our recommendation is going to be, but I can also take on like reaching out to UC Berkeley's student leadership that did the opt-in system, and maybe we can publicize like a statement from them too. That way, it's kind of even in that sense. But yeah, I'm totally fine with everybody speaking.
okay, and I totally agree. We should do that, Millen. If you get any information from those folks, I know
Yeah, I can reach out for sure.
and I'm close with the president there, so I can.
Yeah, if
also,
you want to do that too, yeah.
yeah. Okay. Abby, it sounds like our EVP and our IVP and a few other folks want to hear from you. So, and also I know I do see that Lily and Shahama have their hands up as well. So, do either of you all want to go before we start asking questions from Abby? Okay, Shahama's good. Is Lily here? Okay, so
No,
I'm
I
gonna.
believe she left. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we'll move then to Ebby. Um, Joanna and Kim, it sounds like you both are like really interested in hearing from Ebby. So do you all have any questions for him, or should he just talk about his experience at Yale so far?
Wait, can I make my comment really quick?
Oh, yeah, yeah, of course, of course.
I just wanted to say that like, and I like don't want to get into like any sort of argument, but to people responding in the chat that are not members of USAC, like I I'm very upset right now, and like I have to be here because this is my job. But you know nothing about us as council members. And to say that I have inherent privilege to not want to succeed academically is very false. I spent half of my sophomore year in the hospital. I almost died. I had 3 emergency surgeries. And my GPA suffered because of that, but I stayed in school and I would love to boost my GPA as much as possible because I applied to grad school and I'm still waiting. I'm on wait lists. Like I don't think like I personally won't tolerate that in this meeting. And like I don't know what else to say, Robert, but like public comment has ended. So you should not be chatting in the chat anyway. And you can have personal beliefs about me, but at the end of the day, we're doing what's we feel is best for the students. And I just find it incredibly disrespectful that you would presume to know anything about me.
Thank you, Lily. And yeah, I think we're just all asking everybody to be respectful and that we're all coming with good intention as well to try to do our best. Um, okay, with that, we're going to move to Abby, John, and Kim. I know you both were interested. So, do you all have any questions, or would you like to for him to just kind of, I guess, speak on his experience of mutually advocating for this at Yale and like what's been going on at that campus?
I think some initial questions I would have would be like background motivations for like why this started, what what the decision making process looked like. I know you mentioned that a lot of the similar perspectives and concerns have been raised or were raised when you were making this decision. And then what is feedback looking like now?
Abby?
Hi guys, I just want to say thank you so much for letting me speak. I'll just give a short intro on who I am, so just from more perspective. My name is Eddie Phillip, and I'm very impressed by y'all on how you pronounce my name correctly from the beginning, which is just super impressive. I'm a Yale College senator. I'm from Kentucky as well. And I just a little bit background, like I'm queer, I'm first gen low income. I take care of my grandparents now because my mom has to work. So that's also like a full-time job for me. And I also work 4 student jobs on campus, which I have lost wages for since I have been forced to come back on campus. I forced to come back home. So this is like an issue that really affects me as well. In relation to how Universal Pass started at Yale, we started maybe a few, like I would say like a week ago, maybe 8 days ago at the very maximum. It started with a few council members of the Yale College Council coming together. A lot of us were FGLI, queer, and come from like very segmented groups on campus who were most affected by the change of policy for us to come back to home away from campus and moving on to online classes. And it started with us, and then we reached out to our affiliate organizations, FLY, which is First Gen Low Income at Yale, and we reached out to our cultural centers and organizations, and they were all very much on board with it. And we pushed out a grassroots campaign in a lot of ways and organized a lot of student leadership around it and started our campaign one night with No Fail Yale, started a Facebook page, infographics, what is Universal Pass, started an FAQ page. We started answering people's Facebook comments and posts that they were making anti-UP. And we just started responding on like what we felt UP was, what we knew UP was not. And we just went from there. I have been listening to the entire conversation for the part that I have been on, and if it's okay with y'all, if I can just go down the list of things I've heard most frequently come up in this conversation and just address them, or just say how Yale has addressed them and move forward, if that's okay with y'all.
I think that's
Okay,
fine.
sounds good. For the first part of about GPAs, about how some people need their GPAs to be raised for this quarter semester. We've been through that issue a lot of times and talking about this with students who need their GPAs raised, students who don't need their GPAs raised. At the end of the day, there has been no one on this campus, or I'm just going to speak from Yale's perspective, that has predicted a global pandemic to like swipe through like the entire world, clear out grocery stores, unemploy millions of people every single week. And we haven't been predicting that. So we've been working hard, all students, whether they're international, first and low income, whatever backgrounds they come from. And then when Yale and other universities announced that you would no longer be able to come back to campus, Yale as a campus was an equalizer for many of us with speedy internet access, quiet study spaces, student jobs that gave us income, and just a lot of like materials and resources that we had at campus that we don't have when we're at home in an online learning environment. So my point is everyone has worked hard. And now when we move to an online platform and grading students, it doesn't grade those students who are most underprivileged fairly. You're grading upon privilege instead of actual ability that the students possess. Because when you're grading upon when people are back home on an online environment, you're not correcting for those who don't have quiet study spaces. Like, it's a real miracle that I have a quiet space right now, and I hope I don't wake up any of my family members. But a lot of people don't have quiet study spaces. A lot of people don't have steady internet connection. OIS, our Office for International Students, came out with a research report after a survey that 1/3 of international students don't have steady internet connection, and around 1/5 are not in their home country because they're stranded in different locations because of border closings and a lot of other issues affecting them. So talking about GPAs, everyone has worked hard this semester or this quarter, but it's not fair to judge or grade people upon their privilege rather than ability when it comes to grading in this perspective. In mention to grad schools, as Robert has mentioned before, graduate schools have already come out, like Harvard Med and Stanford graduate schools, and Columbia Graduate School came out today by saying that they will only accept a pass or a P on people's transcripts only if the university had implemented a universal pass fail or a universal pass policy. If not, then they will not accept it and you will no longer be a qualified applicant to these graduate schools, which essentially means those people who will be more likely to pick pass no record or ask to get their classes on a pass system are those who are most underprivileged on campus, who don't have Wi-Fi, who don't have quiet study spaces, who have other obligations outside of classes, especially with everything that is going on with the crisis currently. So these students are the ones who will pick pass. And now if the university doesn't move to a universal pass fail system or a universal pass no record system, these students who are the most underprivileged at this university will be continually underprivileged in the admissions process when they go and apply to grad schools, law schools, professional schools, whatever it is. So by not making it a universal policy, it disadvantages the students who are most vulnerable on campus. And in relation, I heard the phrase academic renewal come up on a policy. I think Orion, if I pronounced that correctly, mentioned that about how some people can withdraw from classes if it's not working out for them, if they have a C or a D. But again, we have to consider who these people who are withdrawing from classes are. These will be the most underprivileged at this campus, at any university. And it's not fair to ask these students to retake their classes, extend their time that they'll have to spend at UCLA, for furlough when they'll have to go to graduate school or post university because of their economic status, because of the resources they have available. And another and then someone mentioned extend and drop deadlines. I don't think a universal policy is mutually exclusive with an extension of a drop deadline. We've already implemented that. Yale is currently an opt-in system. So as we are advocating for universal pass, they have created an opt-in system, and now we're trying to move this opt-in system to a universal pass system. So we've already implemented reforms where you can withdraw from classes up to the last day of exams without showing a W on your transcript for withdrawal. So I don't think these two policies are mutually exclusive in any way. You can have both. And I think it benefits all students by having both options available if they do want to have universal pass, but also if they would like to withdraw from classes without it being a penalty for these students. And I would say that was like a succinct, hopefully, version of the arguments presented. I'd love to take any questions if y'all have any. And yeah, thank you guys so much for having me.
Joanna / Kim, I think they both might not be. Oh, there's Joanna. Hi, Joanna. Do you have questions? We also still have an order with Shahama and Milan that seem like they both want to say something. So
you can let them go ahead. I'm battling with my dishwasher right now.
Okay. Shahama?
Yeah, I was I wanted to talk about like the letter in general. So if we're still talking about pass no record, and if Milan wants to say something about that, she can go ahead and I can talk about that later.
Yeah. Any questions for like Ebby in this
No,
context?
yeah, no.
Okay.
No, I don't either. So if anyone has questions for Abby, that should go first.
Okay, Brandon. Yeah.
So just to clarify, because I was under the impression that Yale had already implemented universal pass no pass. Is Yale still considering the proposal? Are you advocating for it, or is it implemented?
So currently we have an opt-in system. So we've been advocating for universal pass for around a week now, and then around a couple of days ago, they announced essentially an opt-in system for an opt-in pass no fail system. And now we're continually advocating for a universal pass system, and the administration will make their final decision on April 2nd regarding a universal pass fail or a universal pass system.
Okay, so can we I'm misunderstanding now. So this is more of a question for Robert. So Robert, if I was on which schools have actually implemented a universal pass no record system?
Yeah. I've never claimed that Yale was one of them. Columbia, Smith College, Bernard College, Dartmouth College switched today, Swarthmore, MIT, and then it's on
Robert,
Stanford.
are any of these on the quarter system?
Dartmouth is on the quarter system.
Chicago did as well, and they're also on the quarter system.
Okay.
And then also Stanford has it on their academic senate agenda. Okay. Other questions for Abby before we move back down the call, the roll call?
Do you need a one more test then?
Yeah.
Yeah, Orion, yeah.
Well, just rebuttal to the rebuttal. For students that would have, who would have done academic renewal for some of those items, we could make it so that they don't necessarily have to retake that class. But in the end, it's not like that knowledge just becomes like just goes away. Like if you need certain knowledge in like engineering to like build something, it's not like suddenly you don't need that piece of knowledge anymore. So in the end, they're going to have to make up for it in grad school or at UCLA anyway, if that's like what we're worried about. But it it doesn't, like, just hiding the problem does not fix the problem. And this way, the things that we can actually deal with is what the GPA is of that person and what grad schools see when they look at that person, and that's what we can change. And in that sense, we, with universal academic renewal, we can remove those difficulties provided by the universities to that person. But as for the actual knowledge, we can't fix that either way. So, like, in any system, they would have that issue. Yeah, just want to see what your thoughts on that are.
My thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's for you.
Okay. I would say that this is not an equitable solution still. I feel like it's not like knowledge gained or lost. It's about how knowledge is essentially scored. So right now, if there is not a universal pass fail system, or if there's not a universal pass system, then how students will be graded will be based upon the resources they have access to rather than their ability to perform and practice that knowledge. And if students believe that they don't have the necessary knowledge to move on to engineering school, grad school, whatever it may be, that's when the withdrawal process that has no penalty can come in, where the students themselves can decide whether or not they have that necessary knowledge to move forward. So I feel like a universal pass system becomes more equitable in the way of solving for this knowledge deficit or whatever we would like to call it.
I have one more question. How then, though, will adding a universal pass no record system solve for the resource inequity? So, like, if somebody doesn't have access to internet access, or they're immunocompromised, or they get sick during the next 10 weeks, or their family gets sick during the next 10 weeks, that doesn't increase their access to the internet, or that doesn't increase their ability to perform well in their classes, so they would end up with a no record anyway. How I'm still trying to see how it solves that problem at all.
So a universal pass policy never aims to solve social inequities like food insecurity, disease, or immunocompromised people. It aims to alleviate the social inequity that we see today within the grading process that will be implemented under an online grading system, which bases people's students' progress based upon the access to their resources rather than their ability to perform the knowledge that's given to them in their classes. In no way does universal pass or universal pass fail or universal pass no record solve any of these inequities like you mentioned. It only aims to alleviate the ones that are caused and perpetuated and increased due to moving a platform of learning online than from having it on campus.
Well, in that case, then people still need to work even if they have access to achieve these grades. Both ingredients are necessary. And in the case that students do have access, then they would want their work to be recognized because maybe they do need it to be recognized in order to make up for like a struggle that they had freshman year. And in the case where they don't have access, they're going to lose the knowledge regardless. And now it's what do we want to do about that in terms of what grad schools see. So in that respect, I don't think that, yes, it is unfair if you present them with like something that marks them as like in a bad way for graduate school, but that's why you just remove that. And that's why I was saying it would be better to do universal academic renewal rather than universal pass no record.
Before you respond to that, Ebby, Joanna had her hand up. So Joanna. You're muted, Joanna, sorry.
It's okay. I said I forgot it because Orion spoke when he wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, okay. Abby, do you want to respond then while Joanna reconsiders, or if she remembers her question, she can ask you.
So essentially for the people who want their GPA, for their hard work to be recognized, it is also important to recognize that first generation low income students and international students have also put in a lot of hard work, and they are not being able to perform to the same level of their ability in the past because of the resource deficit that has like become from online learning, because there's not access to internet, because they don't have access to study spaces, because they have to take care of family members now, because they have to take on additional financial responsibilities with the ensuing economic crisis. And in relation to grad school, it's just because you take a class no record that it doesn't show up. Even if the university does not have a universal policy, even if you pass that class, then it will still be a detriment to those students who have chosen to pass that class, because they will not accept that applicant anymore. They will not accept that applicant to become a future lawyer. They will not accept that applicant to become a future doctor. These graduate schools have come out and set the precedent that if the university does not implement a universal policy, then these applicants who did choose to have pass no record or pass fail in their transcript will no longer be qualified applicants, which means those who choose to have pass no record or pass fail, again, are the most underprivileged students, again, just delaying the inequity down the road when these students decide to apply for future careers and education opportunities.
Joanna?
I think my question more so was for council now. I know we're not supposed to use the group me to kind of guide what's going on because that isn't logical. But when I put that in addition to like the Google form responses and when I like briefly skim like through to try and get an image of like what some representation looks like, and I see that a lot of students are pushing back against this, I feel concerned. Not in that I want it to, not that I'm letting it sway my opinion on stuff, but that I'm concerned that, you know, what this will mean and how, you know, I want to ask council basically like, how are we going to address this? I think I want to ask this for both things because I think often to me personally feels like the safer thing to do just to like appease people and also like try to accommodate people. But the argument is true that like people who are heavily impacted by stuff don't really get a choice. And it's hard because I've seen many people, including myself, come out of really difficult situations and still push for academic success. And I feel really sad that that is the scenario that people find themselves in. And like, regardless of their success or not, like I feel sad that they have to go through that. So I think moving forward, I just want to move on to reading the letter, move on to whatever concerns council members had, addressing that in the letter, and seeing like if we can like update it or if there's just like not going to be people who are persuaded by it, and then moving on to the vote just so that this criticism can be pointed towards something so that we can make progress. Because I feel like right now we're talking not necessarily in circles but just talking on and on, and while that's important, I feel like I want to ultimately get to a vote, and I feel like addressing the letter is the best way to get to a vote. So I don't know how other council members feel about that, but that would feel more like where I want to go with this. I feel like I appreciated Evie's ability to provide me with more perspective about different things. But I still feel like there's plenty of things that I still need to make my mind up on. But yeah, so some of the main things on my mind are like student feedback, how we're supposed to address this, whether we go opt-in or universal pass no record. And I forgot the third thing, but yeah, I think first I just want to ask council how they feel about moving forward to looking at the letter to see if we can direct criticisms towards that instead of at each other for a debate, if you know what I mean.
I think yes, but I do want to make sure Shahama's like waited a long time, I know, to say something. So Shahama, if you have anything to add, and then Millen, and then Brandon, if you were addressed, then Isabel. Yeah.
Can you go ahead?
Yeah.
So I agree with Joanna. I think like we should just move on to the letter and my but I just want to before that there was something that stood out that I just want to point out. I really appreciate the Yale perspective being brought in, but I want to highlight that like we need, especially because international students were spoken about. We need to understand that international students in a private versus a public institution is very difficult, solely based on the kind of financial aid and the scholarship that they get, that does influence the kind of socioeconomic background that they come from going into a private or a public school. And I also want to say like I've been trying to do research and I've looked into Dartmouth and U Chicago, and both of them, like Dartmouth has about 5,000 undergrad students, U Chicago has about like 15,000, I think. And I think like we're dealing with like 40,000 undergrads, and although looking at other schools, for example, is good, I think we should also like bring back the conversation to UCLA and what, sorry, 32,000, my bad, which is still like double the amount that U Chicago is. But yeah, I think we should bring back the conversation to UCLA students and the letter, and specifically our community. Yeah.
I also wanted to add something
Yeah,
that Shahama reminded me of is that when I was looking at UCOP budget funding and like especially last year when we were talking about giving funding to international and undocumented students, a significant portion, I want to say more than half of the international student population are international students from China, like just statistically. And so I hope that that kind of also puts into perspective about like, you know, students who had families from there or who went back there and like how they're going to be adjusting moving forward. I think those are some of like the most like some of the affected people that are going to be like re-engaging with this community after disengaging like forcefully, and they're going to be like looking to a UCLA and administration to kind of adjust accordingly. And because I think that speaks a lot if we're going to like focus on like serving people who are affected. I think that would also be really important, just because I don't feel like people understand like, you know, how we're supposed to like accommodate. I think because I feel like we're asking a lot about like what if when we do have a population that I feel is significant in terms of like current people that are affected in the past, as in just like politically, like looking at the news and like how they're coming out of a seemingly like recovering from the outbreak, if you know what I mean.
Okay, Isabel, you can type your thing and send it. In the meantime, I think.
I just want to add on something, Robert.
Yeah.
I think just adding on to what Joanna said, which is why I think I really want us to also like focus on like lectures being recorded. I know Naomi spoke earlier, and I know she's not here, but she spoke earlier about professors wanting the academic freedom and like wanting to be able to have discussion with students, which I really appreciate. But I want us to like be able to highlight that for a lot of international students, like the time difference makes it literally impossible to access internet at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Even if they can access internet, they should not be forced for their mental or physical well-being to be attending classes at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. just because their professor refuses to record a lecture for them. And like I would appreciate if council also like focused on that advocacy aspect. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can speak on that a little bit too, because I think Naomi had like a specific point she was making there too, was just that the recording issue is one that I think we all stand by, that like lectures should fundamentally be recorded, and that's really important. I was on a call with Professor Moranzi yesterday for like 45 minutes, who chairs the Academic Senate, and he expressed his essentially, just like bluntly speaking, made it sound like it wasn't necessarily possible, like that it could be possible to encourage them but maybe not require it. And I think, I don't want to like speak on behalf of Naomi, but I remember her saying that her argument was that like especially in that context of like we can focus on that, but if we know that that might not be possible, I think that's what Naomi was saying was why she supported something more universal, was because like we factually know that there will be students who are in that situation that like you just described, Shahama. And I know that Naomi like is able to get on this call again in like 30 minutes. But that was my impression. And what I also got from talking with Chair Morans was that it it wasn't possible for that to happen. Mainly he cited intellectual property, and then also cited like academic freedom. And I like don't know those subjects as well as him, so I like tried to push back and was like, well, it seems like this is an issue of equity for students, but like he he just responded by saying intellectual property. So like just so you know that transparent, because I'm also all for really heavily pushing that because I think it's really important. But just like so you know, just transparent wise, that was something that I brought up with him. Yeah. In the do so if we want to focus on this letter, do we? Oh, Lily, yeah, yeah.
Hi, sorry. I just wanted to clarify a point that Naomi brought up earlier that a lot of people had missed, maybe. The Academic Senate has already made some form of decision that none of us are privy to. We don't know what it is. So our letter is not making a choice. Whichever way we decide to go in, we're not really choosing at all.
Just for clarity too, like I was also included in that email by the Academic Senate about like decisions that they've made so far. Um, they have made some, I would say, relatively minor decisions. It's not to say that it, it is still possible for them to take these considerations into for these recommendations into consideration and to vote on them. Like just so everybody knows that like there is information that's already been voted on and everything, but that this is still something that is possible.
Also, that was why I asked about like earlier specifically
Yeah.
about what the nature of the recommendation was, not because I really cared. I mean, I care what it is. I'm not asking for that information, but I was wondering if it mattered to continue the discussion we're currently having.
Yeah, I don't think it. Yeah,
Rob,
Clutchy.
you were
Yeah.
worried about like Naomi being gone. She said that she'll be back in, or like she should be landing in like 10.
I got it. I got it.
She said that she's like 10 minutes out, so she'll be back.
Okay. Thank you, Kalechi. Okay, so I think we should move on to reading the contents of the specific part of the letter where we make the recommendations. Is everybody else in favor of doing that? Can I get some head nods from council
You can
members?
just ask for opposition next time.
Okay, yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay. Okay. So I'll just read the part that what we currently have right now written down. It's like obviously subject to change from what we drafted. So it says, I'm just going to read through all of the points that we have made so far. The first is implement universal pass no record grading with a mandatory transcript notation in a narrow petition process to unmask, or in other words, reveal students' GPAs for students whose GPA specific to spring quarter would directly impact their ability to be accepted into a specific and verified program or opportunity. To further the implementation of this project, the following changes must accompany this action. One, there should be no deadline to submit a petition so as to not affect underclass students potentially applying for programs in the future. Two, students subject to academic action, including but not limited to academic probation, subject to dismissal, and falling behind on expected cumulative progress, shall not be one, placed on these various standings based off academic performance for winter 2020, and two, students that were on the standings prior to winter 2020 will not have winter 2020 count as one of their quarters given to clear their academic action. The college will not count winter 2020 as a quarter where students subject to academic actions can clear their academic action. Three, students shall submit evidence of a GPA threshold requirement for such specific and verified programs or opportunities in order to have their GPAs unmasked from the UCLA's pass no record system. Allowing academic requirements, including for majors, minors, and general education, to be fulfilled with a passing grade for the duration of this policy. The next recommendation is all online instruction to be recorded as to account for students who are unable to access scheduled instruction during particular time periods. This is especially true for international students who may be located in countries which do not allow for the use of Zoom video platforms or located in time zones where it is impossible to attend class during Pacific Standard Time. The third recommendation is for all final examinations to not be scheduled during certain time blocks as to allow for students who are unable to access such examinations to participate in courses. And four, the extension of spring break by 1 week, resuming instruction April 5th, thereby making instruction a 9-week term, as has been done at other quarter system institutions. So those are the recommendations so far. Obviously, we've been focused on the first recommendation a lot. Yeah. So how do we want to move forward with this? I think we should take it back to the question I asked, because I think this would be a good starting ground. Is like, is there opposition to people who are not in favor of, regardless of opt-in or universal, is there opposition to people who are in favor of a default pass no record? So it would start off as pass no record. Okay. If there's no opposition, then like I think we should start with that as a framework moving forward, and then discuss, if we're assuming that we're in favor as a default pass no record on council, do we want there to be a option for students to unmask their GPAs, and how narrow or how broad should that option be? So I think that's the very specific thing we should focus on.
On the previous one, I would say that
You
I
didn't
would.
raise your hand.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
well, no, it's a little bit more nuanced than that. And the nuance is that
The nuance is you didn't raise your hand.
no, I am not opposed to the opt-in or the default, but I am opposed to the other one, and I would prefer over both of those choices universal academic renewal.
Okay. Let's stick to just going in order. Kalechi, then Millen, then Mahika.
My nuanced clarifying question was to ask, can we just I guess like was to make sure like, can we not speak so broadly or beat around the bush about like what unmasking is going to be if we're going to try to evaluate if we're doing it or not? Like, as we're currently debating it, like what does unmasking look like? I think that's really important. Also for anybody who's currently listening to the call, like who isn't on council, that they understand like what unmasking means, because like that's a pretty large piece of context like in this conversation, I think. So I think people should have that information.
Yeah, and Millen, if you want to explain that in your comment as well. I mean, if you, yeah.
I can. Or Robert, if you, because you read it from U Michigan, right? So do you want to read it? Do you want to explain it?
Sure. Just briefly, because I don't want to take away your time. So U Michigan, which is a semester school, has implemented a policy where students who, it's a default pass no record, but students who at the end of the term for the semester system would be able to unmask their grades for certain classes. So they would just pick kind of at the end which classes they wanted unmasked to reveal a GPA. At UCLA, the proposal that's currently on the letter is somewhat different. It allows for there to be so it's more narrow. So you would have to have currently a specific or verified reason for why you would need the GPA for spring quarter, like a program, but that you could, it would be extended for any time. So at any point in the future, if you were applying to a program that had a GPA threshold that would otherwise be met by spring quarter, you could unmask your grade. So unmasking just means revealing the grade. So that's why we said earlier that in any system, professors would still be grading as if they're grading letter grades. So that's the process.
To be clear, with unmasking, people still have the full opportunity to receive their letter grades should they petition.
Yes. Should
Cool.
they petition?
I feel like that's useful for people to know.
Yes.
That's what's being considered.
Yeah, and Millen, if you want to add on to that at all too, you helped with that.
Yeah, I also just want to clarify that U Michigan didn't do the petition to my knowledge, right? Is that right? Yeah, so U Michigan just did the unmasking option where any student, you don't have to petition for it, can like request to get their courses unmasked, and then they get the letter grade without having to give justification or without having to like give verification that they need that. Our letter right now talks about like a narrow petition where students would have to like share that they have like justification and verification that they want to unmask certain classes, like whether that's to qualify for a grad program, if your job is requiring it, if you want Latin honors. I know that I think this was like talked about a couple of days ago before the student input and student responses came in. So like personally, I'm against the petition because I just feel like it takes away students' choice, which is what their main concern is anyway. So I would support like this system, but without the petition.
Okay. Mahika.
Yeah, I think I have like a pretty big issue with the GPA threshold requirement evidence thing because like a threshold requirement is a minimum for a lot of like I don't know whatever for whatever thing has the threshold requirement for the GPA. And I feel like we'd have to be clearer where like I feel like if there is a threshold requirement period, like people should be able to unmask their grades because you know it the difference between meeting and unmeeting that threshold is obviously really great and really large and is the same thing as like making or breaking um like the whole secondary school saying unless it's universal pass we won't accept pass no record grades. So I think that's like the same thing, but also like a threshold requirement is like I said the minimum, and if you're trying to like give students autonomy in general like over their chances over like getting I don't know if that's like the aim of that bullet point, like it's flawed to only unmask if spring quarter grades help someone meet a requirement. Like it should just help someone period. If that makes sense. Like any any improvement past threshold also like should be means for unmasking. And I also think the petition, it's a good idea in theory, but we also have to think of like practical timeline when we're talking about all of these recommendations. And I know, like I said, like we've all discussed, this letter is not going to like be the exact decision that the academic senate takes. However, like submitting a petition after like significantly after grading is all finished, waiting to get those, like waiting for a review period and then waiting to get those grades, and then sort of like sending out apps or whatever, like also puts a lot of undue like time pressure on a lot of applications and a lot of like future plans that students may have, especially because for things like grad school, like applications are rolling, and a lot of times if you don't get apps in as early as possible, like your chances of getting into that school are like greatly lowered. And I know people know this, but I think I'm with Millen in the sense that I think for also additionally those reasons, I would support like this letter wholly if there was no petition for unmasking.
Okay. Sorry. Joanna?
I forgot what my earlier comment was going to be, but I think I agree with the two things that Nahika said regarding the GPA threshold. I would like to hear where that idea came from, just so I can get more context for it, because I think just reading it on its own, I feel like, why is there a GPA threshold when we're talking about doing something that's supposed to be equitable for the student body, and making sure that they have flexibility in a difficult time, under difficult circumstances. And then the petition thing, I think the no deadline is fine for me, but I think, yeah, I'm still concerned about how the petition process would work practically. I feel like those two things stand out the most for me. I think everything else is fine for the most part. Um, yeah.
Shahama?
Wait, is somebody gonna answer Joanna's question?
Oh, do you want to stay? I was planning on answering it when I spoke, but I can answer it now. I mean, I can.
Yeah,
I'll wait.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Shahama?
You can answer.
Oh, I was just going to say that the idea for the petition process came when we had our meeting. I believe Millen was there, Kalechi was there, Lalo was there, Kim was there. We like had a meeting where we drafted the letter, and the idea was that because you would essentially be doing a delayed opt-in system under a process where students can just unmask their GPAs, it leads to it may be slightly better because it's the default of the university, but it leads to a process where students like in that situation, it's just delayed opt-in. So if any student can unmask their GPA, the students who inherently like do well that quarter are going to unmask their GPA, and the students who don't do well are going to keep it past no record. And that leads back to the same problem of equity, which I think like Joanna had brought up, like with graduate school and other programs. So I think like in Millen or Kalechi or Lalo or anybody else who was there, please feel free to chime in. But like my
Well,
impression was that we narrowed the process so that like students who are concerned about absolutely needing their GPA for some sort of like requirement would be able to do so. And we understand that that still leads to a problem of equity within those spaces, but that it would be more restricted and would still normalize the pass no record process. Yeah, Mahika? Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
Um. Okay. Wait. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. My bad. Yeah. Wait. I'm just a little confused. Good night, Dr. Geller. Um. So I thought the whole point of the unmasking was that it counts as like universal pass no record, and then I thought the equity problem would be definitely not solved, but mitigated. And like this is where I kind of lost you, Robert. Like mitigated if those students who, regardless of like background were or circumstance, were able to um like unmask or like get letter grades after the fact without it harming like grad school chances in either direction, um or like and taking into account that obviously like COVID is unpredictable for everyone but is going to hit certain people the hardest, and then also taking into account that like minority groups and backgrounds, like those types of cultures are like not a monolith, and someone who could highly benefit from letter grades can be like have a very similar situation to someone who for whom like letter grades would be highly detrimental. So I just don't understand how like the equity problem isn't 100% solved, but I was under the impression that like whatever we did, the equity problem wouldn't be 100% solved.
Yeah, no, that's totally right. Everything, I think I agree with everything you said. So
Okay,
the
okay. I was just clarifying. Thank you.
yeah, the solution was just that um the universal the default would make it an institutionalized process, which like when we were talking at the beginning about Harvard Med School and everything, that like remember, I don't know if you remember, those schools had said they would only accept pass fail if it was institutionalized. It would solve that problem, hypothetically. So like that's the marginal benefit there. So I completely agree with you. It None of these are going to solve the problems, but Kalechi, I know you had an answer too.
Oh, I think I was going to talk more to the question about like the petition for the unmasking, just because I think like originally I don't remember where unmasking originally came from, like who brought it up in the group or whatever. But I know some people were confused about how Robert was basically just saying it seems like delayed opt-in, like fancy you do it later. Um Shoot, my points are leaving me. Um I might have to come back to it. I forgot.
Okay. I'm kind of lost at where we were. I think Millen, did you did you go already, or do you want to go?
I don't remember what I was gonna say either, but I just want to maybe echo Mahika's statement about I think she was talking about like the delayedness of like how that would affect students, because I didn't even think about this before, but like I guess this current petition I think says that the unmasking option would be available after the quarter, if I'm not mistaken. Is that what it says?
Sorry, let me look too.
Or would it be like continuous throughout the quarter?
I thought it would. I thought we didn't do something
It
where it was after.
it could be, sorry, I personally wrote a lot of this section. It could be done unlimited, and the reason, like, forever, at least until 4 years from now. And the reason is because like freshmen, if like let's say they're applying for a program in 3 years, they should not be hurt by like let's say they're like 0.02 off, and like it's because of this quarter, they should be allowed to go back and get those and become eligible by unmasking the grades but it cannot be determined until every person at UCLA today graduates.
No, yeah, and I agree with that. What I'm asking is like if there's a starting point, because I just feel like having it be a delayed unmasking option doesn't really, like, it's not effective in any way, and that like students, as the quarter goes along and they see themselves doing better, would want to unmask it. But if there's a student that wants to unmask their grade in the beginning of the quarter, I don't see how that like would hurt anyone. So if we're gonna do an unmasking option, I'm not sure if there should be like a starting point that's later in the quarter, just because I don't see like a point to that at all, and it might delay a lot of students in their like grad program deadlines or like application submissions.
Can we clarify that actually? Like, is there the opportunity to unmask prior to the end of the quarter? I feel like
My
that's a
only
really good question.
my only concern with that, and like I'm purely kind of, I don't even know the answer to this. Like I have no idea what I even believe in this regard. But and my concern is, what if a student like unmasked, for example, like week one, and then like obviously the situation's going to get worse than it before it gets better, and like we've all understood that. So like I know it's possible, I think, for them to go back to pass no record, but that like that would seem logistically challenging just for like a student like week one, like I want letter grades, but then a crisis hits, like which is likely to happen for some students. Um, I just don't know. Like, is that a process where we could do that and then want to, um, want to have them have like go back to pass no record? Yeah, Millen, I know you probably have
Yeah,
thoughts.
I think that like if that's something that we can do, that's possible, where like they can unmask and then go back. We could talk about that. I also feel like we're maybe giving them a little less credit. Like students do have like the logic and the agency to like say, to like think about the fact that the situation will get worse. Like we're being told on national TV every day that the situation is probably going to get worse, and so that might be just up to the student to decide if like they know it's going to get worse and they want to unmask it early on, versus like trying to protect them, because I feel like we're all adults, like they can make that decision for themselves. But I do agree in that like if it's possible for administration to do that, like there can be something where they can take back that action or something.
Yeah, that would be my only concern.
Mhm.
Just if it, make sure it's possible for them if a crisis hits to go back again.
Yeah.
So I think we're on the same page as far as that goes. Yeah, other thoughts from other people, like other council members? I know a
I
lot
think
of us.
I have
Yeah.
the. Are we just asking for thoughts? Like currently unmasking delayed is still there. Like we've not taken it out. Like where are we? Can we like regroup like where we're at with it?
And also, I think some of us want to, like, I particularly, given that Naomi told me she wants to be on in like 10 minutes, I think we should definitely hear her too.
Yeah, she's about to be back. She said she's looking for secure connection.
So, oh, she says she's here. So,
I'm just like navigating the airport. Like I'm trying to. Yeah, yeah, I'll be on in like 10 minutes.
okay, thank you. Yeah, regrouping.
Can I say something, Robert?
Yeah.
I also just want to say that I think like, and we've talked about this since like day one of this conversation, like especially the conversations we've had in the past, but I think it's like really important for us to be unanimous on this letter to show like a unanimous decision on council. That way we're not like split. So if there are ways that we can compromise or like ways that we can get every single person on board, because I think we are very split right now and there are very strong arguments on both ends. So especially for those voices that maybe like haven't spoken up as much, but have like a decision on what you decide, like we could help each other compromise.
Can I ask if like, because I know when we originally had drafted it, everyone on the call at least was on board with what was currently in the letter. Is that where we're still at?
I'm honestly like on the fence. I mean I wrote a lot of it and I still support a good amount of it. I still support a lot of it. I just think we need a couple more changes since then, based on like some of the other input I've heard, and potential problems that it would cause. But the skeleton of it I can support. as long as some things are changed.
I would just add, I think, like I'm truly conflicted, and I know like ultimately I'm not even the one with the like unless there's a tie, like I'm not the one with the vote, or unless I can influence the vote. But I'm like wondering as far as like signing my letter onto or my name onto this, like I would just want to hear from council members about like the response or the argument like about this being a opt-in, like a delayed opt-in. Like Millen, I know we've talked about that before, and just like you've given me some good feedback, and like I know we've talked a lot about this, but just for all of council members, like when we're talking about like an opt-in system and why we're not doing that, I know I responded to Mahika's question about saying like, yes, like you have the institutional backing there where a student can say to any graduate program like Harvard, say, actually my university institutionalized this and therefore their pass no record would count. But and obviously we're not going to solve inequity here. We've addressed that, but in terms of like inequity and exacerbating inequity, like does this do anything different in terms of like that? Mahika, I know you like responded to that earlier, and it's like kind of a little bit lost on me. I'm just trying to remember what you had said. Just in terms of like in a is it just a delayed opt-in system? And in the hypothetical where you have a student who truly can't, is forced to not be able to do letter grades, it's like forced into a pass no record system. How would that like hypothetical be different under like a delayed unmasking period? And anybody can answer that, like not whoever wants to. So yeah, Mahika or Millen, I know both. Yeah.
Yeah, I can just like concisely reiterate what I like said earlier. Basically, just my primary concern with like the equity thing with universal pass, like the biggest like pro in my opinion is that like it won't like prohibit anyone from applying to a grad school that says, hey, like if you don't have letter grades and your university allowed it, like we're not going to accept you, or like we're good to consider you last, or like et cetera, whatever. So that is like a non-issue with unmasking, delayed unmasking, whether it's like after the quarter ends. After you graduate seems like a little much for me, because just like circling back to my second point about like petitioning taking a long time and like getting a job taking a long time as well, I just feel like waiting that long, like people would lose a lot of opportunities, and we'd be back to square one with the whole like they wouldn't be able to apply to grad school. So that's why I feel like if it's like I have no problem with it being delayed. I just don't think it should be delayed later than like after the quarter ends. Like, but we can talk more about that later. And then hold on, train of thought. Oh yeah, and then basically I feel like the unmasking thing not sidesteps, it like accounts for the equity issue that we were talking about earlier, and it also gives students who are from different backgrounds, some of the most impacted backgrounds, still the option, because we don't know each and every one of their stories, to like choose at the end of the day like what is better for them, whether like the COVID, for example, if like COVID was more disadvantageous than something else in their life, they have the ability to keep that pass no record. And if it was flipped, we'd still be advocating for like the most like marginalized students on all accounts, because they'd also be able to get that letter grade if that's something that they need.
Okay, that helps. Millen and then Kalechi.
Yeah, I agree with like Mahika's statement as well. I also just wanted to, I think I've been trying to say this for a while and I keep forgetting, but the reason why like I am also in strong support of like an unmasking option or like even a delayed unmasking option is because I think like, and the difference between like when I talked to everyone a couple of days ago and now like about the narrow petition is just that I saw in those days like the giant student response in opposition to universal pass. And I think that like if we released a statement about universal pass, and in my opinion, even with the narrow petition, there would be like a big student outburst against that. And to administration, it wouldn't seem like the student body was united on this one like decision, which would further incentivize them to just like disregard it and stick with the status quo. And I feel like the status quo is the most dangerous thing in this situation, because the status quo is the one thing that hurts like most students. And so I feel like this like system with pass no record with an unmasking option that can be delayed but without the petition would be the one that's like most united for the entire student body, and the student body like would get behind it because they would see the benefits for all students for that. And I feel like it could be the one that's like most feasible to administration because they have support from the majority of their students.
Okay, Kalechi.
Okay. I have concerns still, like I said before, with unmasking, like, or kind of like delayed unmasking, just because I'm like currently even thinking of how does that affect most aptly like seniors, like people who are seniors right now. I guess like the point is, my honest opinion is that like if unmasking is going to exist, this is an opt-in system, like, and so while the like the ability to unmask of is going to be, I guess, harmful or can be harmful for like the disadvantaged students who don't have like as much choice. I think if that's what this is, that's what this is, and there's no point in like doing delayed unmasking. Like as long as if there's a universal transcript notation and like this is an opt-in system, I just don't really see that as being any different from like universal transcript notation and delayed unmasking. Is what I'm saying like making sense? Like I'm saying like if we have universal transcript notation and people have the ability to unmask their grades without petition, then this is just an opt-in. Like we don't have to call it something fancy and call it like unmasking. It doesn't have to be delayed.
Can I respond real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think conceptually it's totally the same. I think UMich found a way to get around the like grad school career opportunity, huge like, I don't know, inequity perpetrator that like certain elite institutions have like put into place.
Yeah.
Because that was my like primary concern when it comes to equity.
Yeah.
And since that is like bypassed or whatever, like whatever term you want to use, by like, yeah, this like fancy ass terminology, like I'm down. Because I am genuinely, as I've expressed, like genuinely worried about people with different circumstances who like do come from like the most oppressed and like just like most marginalized backgrounds who want letter grades this quarter, whatever. But like that's kind of like where I'm coming from. And
I remember what I was going to say earlier about why unmasking we had ended up discussing it being delayed in the first place was because Millen had been talking about like if people have like it's not just people wanting to boost their GPA, it's that people genuinely have thresholds that they need to meet. So that was what that was. I remembered it. So there's that. But yeah, I know it's been asked if I am fine with unmasking. I mean, I was fine with unmasking when we wrote it, and like I still am, and I don't necessarily think it's the most equitable option, but I do think if we are going to include unmasking, this is an opt-in. And so there's really, as long as there's universal transcript notation, there may as well not be a petition. Because like while I don't necessarily support it, if it doesn't solve the problem, I don't see any reason in making it more difficult than need be.
Brandon. Yeah, it does.
Okay.
I really hear Mahika and Millen's great points, and Kalechi's. I think I'll come out in favor of unmasking officially, just so like I don't want to be like uncertain about where I'm at. I do think it's important to reemphasize the transcript notation, and also to emphasize an extended drop deadline with no repercussions for dropping through week 10, because I think that helps to solve, like if there's a specific class where a professor is causing a problem, and like for example, let's say pass is redefined. I really think that's going to be a problem this quarter in a lot of life science and STEM courses especially, if the definition for pass is redefined, then that completely it completely derails the pass no record situation in a lot of senses. But with the unmasking and with extended drop, that could help mitigate that if professors quite honestly decide to be assholes under the current circumstances. So I really think unmasking plus um, plus week 10 drop deadline with no petition or transcript notation, plus mandatory transcript notation about pass no record in general.
Okay. Lalo.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I might repeat some stuff that was said already, so I'm sorry if I do it like stepped back for a little bit, just because lots going on. Um, I did. I guess I kind of want to preface this that like at least on an individual level, I feel that universal pass on record is like the most equitable, but kind of like how Kalechi said, or actually, wait. I also definitely see the value in having like an unmasking system or just like an opt-in or whatever the heck we want to call it, because I think there has been a lot of push from students to have that system and have some mechanism for that. And I know we brought up, and I also brought up, was that like what we haven't heard from the students that are most disadvantaged are the ones that don't even have access to this conversation. But that I think for me personally, like I also think that means I can't assume that they would be in favor of universal pass either. And I know it's a sentiment that like I've kind of seen as well. And I think for me that's kind of like why I personally believe that universal pass non-record would be the most equitable. I do think we have gotten a lot of input from different folks, and I do think that it's something that should be in consideration. Is for me, it's ultimately like what is like pushing me to like move forward with like an unmasking or opt-in or whatever system we move forward with. Because at the end of the day, like I'm here because like my community and like other communities like pushed or like allowed me to be here, for lack of a better word. I feel like while I may have my own opinions, there are also opinions from my communities and other communities that like have similar or have different sentiments from me. I'm sorry if that was incoherent. I'm a mess right now. Yeah.
You're doing great.
Thank you, Lalo, and take care, please. I think I really resonated with what Kalechi said, which is I personally I think feel as though I'm in favor of a universal pass no record system, and I think that that still stems from the equity issue that like hearing these responses has been somewhat unaddressed and that I only think would be addressed through that system. That being said, like I understand that like there needs to be um a way to not cause panic and a way for people to not, I think, freak out about validly about um, GPAs, about graduate programs. Um, so I I think I agree with what Kalechi said, which is if we're not going to go all the way to universal pass no record, which it sounds like the decision here was more between a very narrow take or a broader take. Both of those exhibit to me or exude the same inequities that would exist in any system where the people who don't have a choice to make, who are pushed into pass no record, are still are still going to be viewed at a disadvantage compared to graduate programs, compared to their peers who chose letter grading. Um, I don't I don't think it I think that like we then if we're not going to do all the way and be all the way equitable, I think in like that regard, and in my opinion, that it is really not irrelevant, but just it I don't want to formulate an opinion, I guess, on those two issues, and that I would because am in favor of universal pass no record, I guess, if that makes sense. So I think like the inequities exist in either world, but then I understand the points that Millen and Mahika had brought up, which is like we also want to like make sure students who do care about their GPA, and given like students' response to this to some degree, like to a large degree, has been like in favor of wanting to see their GPAs. I don't think it matters what we're calling it in terms of like an unmasking system or whatever, or a delayed opt-in. So that's my opinion on the matter. Yeah, Kalechi, Lily, then Naomi.
I had just wanted to heavily support Brandon's idea of dropping the drop deadline, and I guess also encourage us to look into other accommodations more along those lines. Because I feel like I don't remember what it was, but when Evie was speaking earlier, I had definitely heard an idea that I thought was great. Unfortunately, I don't remember, but I feel like this Bush has been about beat dead, and also it's like we're kind of at the same conclusion that we were at a few days ago, where for the most part all of us were like in support of trying to instill some type of equity, but also create some type of opt-in for people. Like that's where we have been. Like we haven't really gotten anywhere different, so that's no fun because it's been hours. But yeah, I think we should honestly maybe focus more on trying to find like those other ways, like dropping the drop deadline and other things that make it easier. I know we had talked like in the group me about stuff with like retroactive drops and like whatever and whatnot. I think we should like be looking into those types of things that also will make people's individual circumstances more bearable. And that's all.
Yeah. Let's avoid just for 1 minute, Brandon. Like adding things just so we can go through this real quick. Lily, then Naomi.
Yeah, I was just gonna agree with Kalechi. Like, I really like Brandon's idea of late dropping, and I also think we should just kind of move in a direction. Like, it's very clear we're not going to get any form of universal pass, no record. And I've said since the beginning, I want to do what's best for the student body. So if universal pass, no record is not what's best, then like I actively want to search for other solutions, whether that be a late drop or like accommodating extenuating circumstances. For example, there are currently no structures in place for students that need accommodations with online software. Like there's nothing in place. So we need to be instead focusing on issues like that than what we're doing now, because we're just going back in circles.
Naomi, and then Millen.
I just wanted to say I definitely got on this call pretty late. I'm seeing like a lot of people have changed positions, and I completely understand like lots of folks' reasonings. I understand like folks wanting the vote to be anonymous. I will personally say it's incredibly disappointing because the point of universal pass, no record, universal pass in general is to protect the most marginalized students. Not even knowing that in a few days, like I myself could be one of the most marginalized students, any one of us in this group chat. Some of us already are very marginalized. And I do think that that was like the purpose of me being so head on about this universal pass. And I understand everybody's hesitancies and like genuinely respect that. I would just also want to encourage and remind y'all that, and I'm going to be very honest, nothing we say or like nothing we push for is set in stone. I don't know if y'all remember when we were advocating for finals, we were advocating for the cancellation of finals because we knew we would get so much less than that. We've seen already that the academic senate is very, very conservative. It's been really hard to advocate, and especially for the folks that have actually done this advocating and who are actually in conversation with these people, with the higher up people, you would see that it's not as easy to just advocate for a drop deadline to be extended. It wasn't even easy to get faculty on board with the vote that we took a few days prior that I'm unfortunately not allowed to disclose. But again, I go for the craziest ideas, like wanting to abolish UCPD or something of that nature, because I know that this this institution will constantly push back on wanting to protect its most marginalized students. And I'm honestly really disappointed in a lot of you people on this call that call yourselves student leaders and couldn't stick up for the most marginalized communities in this time. But I also respect everything that you're saying. So I think I'm feeling lots of emotions. And I mean, I also think we should move on because I just got on an hour and a half flight and y'all are still circling around this conversation. And definitely want to caution people from calling themselves allies in this moment. Because I think I think a lot of us came really far from that. And that's all I really have to say.
Thank you, Naomi, and we're glad you're back on the call. I agree with much of what you said, and just want to add that I think that I'm at a point where like I still, and I just did this, like just want to vocally express that I am in favor of a universal pass no record system. I think it's the most equitable system. I think many of the other universities have gotten around the concerns that students have regarding grades, GPAs, graduate programs, and that I feel like my hands are tied because like not only do I not have a vote unless I can change the vote or unless there's a tie, I feel like this is a lost cause, like in the sense that it seems like a lot of people on council validly are concerned about like students' concerns about just what we're hearing, what we're not hearing. And to me, it seems like it's like Kalechi, me, Isabel, Lily, kind of, and then like that's and you, and that's like 5. So I just want to like express in terms of universal pass, and that I don't feel like I can advocate for this if I don't have a majority on council and if it's going to be a divided vote. And I just want to let like everybody know that I'm in favor of universal pass, and that I'll be very vocal and open about that, even though it doesn't seem this is the direction council's going in. With that in mind, Brandon, like I also like your idea. Obviously, I like your idea in the context of obviously having, I think we're all still with no opposition in the direction of having default pass no record. And then also in the direction of having the like unmasking period, because that gets rid of the institutional problem that Mahika and I talked about earlier with graduate programs. So as long as like that component's there, although I'm like I still feel unsatisfied, I think that would be something that I would be in favor of still. Like if I would be willing hesitantly to put my name down on that if it was still default pass no record. Yeah. And then I think, yeah, Brandon.
Yeah, I think it's default pass no record, week 10 drop deadline. What else were we going for? Mandatory transcript notation. I think we need a couple more things to add some more buffers. I think we should say in the petition that we advocate that a pass grade is set as a 70 or higher for the entire school. I know that might be a pretty big thing, but I'm very concerned about that. And I think that's it can be lower. If we want it to be 60 or 50, I don't care what the number is. I just think we need to make an advocacy for a specific number that will count as a pass. So professors, ultimately, like the academic senate will decide what it decides, but I don't think it's out of our reach, even with doing this, to put other stipulations on the board that push it in the right direction, such as the week 10 thing and defining what it passes. And there can be others, but I think those are 2 really important ones right now.
I see the point of trying to institute like a threshold for there being a pass. Like I really do. I think where I'm worried is just where does that stop a professor from saying, okay, say we even lower it to 60% or something, yeah, as a pass. Where does that stop STEM professors? Because I know they have had me fucked up many a time from just saying, well, now it's harder to get a 60%. Like it really doesn't. It's just why I don't feel it. Like I feel like it's a great idea to want to do, but there's no way to kind of stop like professors' individual like discretion from completely circumventing that, which is why we're trying to do this whole thing in the first place, because discretion does not really help. Just want to say that.
Can I respond with one thing, or do we have to go back?
Is it okay if we go to Millen and then you can respond,
I only
Brandon?
said it because there were no ones. Sorry.
No, Millen can go first, and I'll go.
Yeah, I was just gonna respond to that because that was also something that I was like trying to consider how we would tackle that, because I think that's a huge issue in either situation, universal pass and record or in the opt-in system. I don't, and if anyone has any other ideas, like feel free to join in, but I think that like just making it very clear in our petition that like professors aren't allowed to edit their syllabus to make their classes and their material harder, or to like edit their thresholds to be harder, would be like a good start, and that they can only make it easier given the current circumstances.
One thing I wanted to add after that, Kalechi, I completely get where you're coming from, and I think at a certain point, like, there's only so much we can do in terms of our advocacy, because ultimately the academic senate has the final call. But I do think we should try to put in as many stipulations we can so as to make it more difficult for professors to try to take advantage. I mean, it's not possible because of academic freedom to like I think like make a blanket prevention, but I do think we can put a lot more hoops that people have to go through to make that happen. And I think there are other, I mean, I propose 2 ideas. I encourage other council members to bring others forward too. I just think like the more specific stipulations we have, that could be very effective in like getting the outcome we want in the end.
I don't disagree. I just think we should strengthen it, I guess, like so it's not so arbitrary and like easy to circumvent, perhaps, which we can try to find ways.
Thank you.
I'm just, I think, confused right now because I'm counting right now, and I'm confused about us moving in a direction when I might be wrong by this, but like a majority of council members that are present right now have vocally supported universal pass no record that are present in this meeting. I'm just confused.
Can
I'm
we do a
confused
straw
about
poll, like an official straw poll, like
What's
just
the goal?
oh, there is one?
No, I'm asking like what is the goal? Like, are we not evaluating the content of the letter right now? I don't think there's, like Millen was saying earlier, we're trying to have like unanimous council support for this. So I don't think there's like
yeah.
No, you're good. I was just confused with where we were at, and I was like, what's happened? Because I just came back. Sorry.
No, I'm confused too because
I think Robert's confused too.
Robert's very confused. Robert is very confused because like we're talking about keeping the language with like we're talking about keeping the language as an option for students to unmask their grades, yet like a majority of council members here have come out and said that they're in favor of universal pass no record. So I'm like that's my confusion. Like that's just my I don't know the answer. I'm just confused. Lily?
I think I am also confused because I've been in support of universal pass since the beginning, obviously, and like I basically like admit defeat. Like I'm like, okay, let's just move on. There's no point in talking about this. If so many other people are not in favor of universal pass, which is what I was gathering, so now I'm confused again.
Are we not currently at around the same place we were when we wrote the letter before, where it was universal PNR and then transcript notation and unmasking option? Is that not still where we're at? And then where like everyone had like signed on to it a few days ago. So I guess I don't get why you're surprised, Robert.
No,
because I feel like everyone had already. We just haven't changed anything. I think we had a meeting and thought things could change. Nothing has changed, but 3 of my hours have been used. So
yeah, no, I'm of the same.
Are we adding things to the letter? Are we voting to move forward on the letter? Like if we are, I think unmasking was our biggest thing and we solved it. Brandon has come up with a cool idea. If we have more to add, we can add them. But at some point, if
Yeah,
we're
can
done
we
adding
just
ideas,
figure out where we're gonna add that just so it's
yeah,
down and like we don't forget it? Because I will forget.
I'll forget it.
Can
Yeah.
I start adding the two provisions I've suggested to the letter?
Yes, can you like highlight them or underline them or something so we
Yeah.
can write it
Can
down?
somebody put the letter back in the chat one more time so like I can just hop onto it really quickly?
Link. Group me.
I linked it.
Oh, thank you, John.
Oh, since seniors. Make it you only. You only.
Please. I'm
Don't
so
go.
sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. Millen.
That's okay. I think that you guys, I mean, yeah, I guess I'm just slightly confused because this still says, like, I think we saw the unmasking option, but the letter still says, like, the narrow petition. So maybe we could talk about that because I don't know where people stand on, like, the narrow
This is
portion.
old. This hasn't been updated at all.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Let me check then.
So
Wait, so we're deleting the narrow petition process? This is my only confusion. Like, I'm genuinely confused. Is like Kalechi, like I heard you. I think like I'm confused about like council members like you, me, Lily, Jonathan, Isabel, like who have vocally said we're in favor of universal pass no record, which I thought my like I am in support of universal pass no record, like which is universal, like that was my impression of what universal pass no record, what we were defining it as. Now, if we're talking about universal pass no record with a system in place, like I'm also, if that's the reality that we're like moving towards, like I can put my name down on that. I'm just confused, like what people's thoughts are. Like I'm just confused where we're moving. Like, are we moving in a direction where we're broadening the scope of the unmasking to make it so anybody can? Because I know like Millen, Mahika, me, and some other folks like had that conversation. Or are we narrowing it? Like I just genuinely don't know like what direction council's feeling like we should move in. So that's where I was confused at. Millen and then Mahika.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, I think if we're like, because universal pass no record might have like the slim majority, but I think we talked about this before and like since the beginning is that like even if it's 8-6 or 7-7,
Yeah.
we do want a unanimous or like majority, like for the most part, unanimous vote on council for this because this is a very important decision that affects a lot of students and we should have something that like reflects all student input. And I do feel like there's still like strong like opposition to universal pass or no record in terms of like the council members that are against it. So I think that's something that we should consider too, is that it's not like there's only like 2 members, there's like around 5 or maybe 6. So yeah.
I had one more idea, by the way, to solve the collection, the problem that we were discussing. What about if we said the markup hash shall be defined as a score of 60% or higher and include at least 80% of the entire distribution of a course's roster?
That's a lot of math that I don't know.
So, like, basically, what it's saying is that if the class must be curved, so we can change the percentage. So at least 4/5 receive a passing grade. We can also say everyone receives a passing grade, but I don't know if that's possible or not. But I think we should include a percentage where if it's curved, it cannot be curved so that like only 5% get a 60.
Mahika, you had your hand virtually raised.
Sorry, Mahika.
No, you're good. It's fine. Okay, like as of 25 minutes ago, I thought we were all on the same page with the whole. And this is the only reason I thought we were all on the same page is because no one expressed opposition. I only heard agreement. I'm not just like pulling that out of nowhere. I just want to be clear. No one expressed any opposition. When people did speak, they just expressed agreement about the like petition, like unmasking being a welcome addition as was already a part of this letter that y'all drafted beforehand, and then 2, the new thing is that we would take out the petition correct me if I'm wrong, take out the petition for equity reasons. And if you want for other reasons, that's fine. Voice that. If you don't agree with that, voice that. The reason I think people are confused is because no one voiced any opposition. So please do that like now if you have any, because we're going in circles and I'm really tired. Like physically tired. Not tired of you all, but like it's 2:20 a.m.
Shama?
Okay, yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing, and I'm not gonna repeat it. Just like move on, please. It's getting very exhausting.
I would like to do a vote.
Okay.
Yes, I second that, please.
We can do a vote. People can motion.
Can we
Wait,
take
wait,
out?
wait. What about Brennan's math thing? Like, I'm still like, are we voting with that whole math thing on
I
there?
think
Because
my idea would actually solve the problem.
does everyone agree?
We can make it 100%.
I think we should just start at the beginning of possible votes of like, we should vote for universal pass, yes or no. And if that is no, then we move on to a vote of like universal pass with unmasking in this circumstance and go from there and there. Like ease our way down. We can start high and ease our way down. We don't have to have the specific thing right now.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Wait, also the letter is on edit and there are a lot of people on it.
No, it's only anybody with the link can edit.
But Joanna accidentally put it in the seniors group me.
Yeah.
Okay, now Lily, you have to
Oh
change.
no, it's expired. It's expired.
It changed. I fixed it. Lily, you have to add all of council.
I did not
You
ask
own
for
it.
this.
I'm so sorry. You own the document.
Okay, I will send it to the all council email.
No, but I don't know if they'll do it because that doesn't include individual.
My access
Okay, I will add
expired.
each individual council member.
Okay, can we?
Wait, can you just drop the emails
terribly sorry
and group me because it's on my personal email, so I don't have anyone's council email like popping up.
Can you just send it to USA Council?
No, because that won't let everyone edit it. Okay, I have cultural affairs.
Wait, can't we just send an editable version of the document?
I am cultural affairs.
Can we just copy paste? Can we copy paste into a different Google Doc and then send that link?
You guys are asking a lot of me.
That's
yes. Yes, I will do that. Oh, okay. Yes. One moment, please.
Okay, can we do what Jonathan suggested? I like that.
I have no problem with that. My only issue is if, like, for example, universal pass might get an 8-6 vote, but like I thought we want like close to unanimous council approval on it.
In my opinion, I feel like I don't know if that's going to happen unless we want this meeting to go until 5 a.m. East Coast time. Universal, like, we've been talking about this for 3 hours. Like,
I think we should just edit the letter because
I mean, not universal, unanimous. I'm sorry. I just dead horse or beating the dead horse.
I move to advocate for a universal pass no record system.
I second.
Okay, we're gonna go down ballot. I have to count again, which y'all know I'm great at. Let's do this. Okay.
Wait, I don't want to abstain. Can someone reiterate what we're voting for? I'm so sorry.
Universal pass.
Seems we're doing a system of voting on universal pass and then broadening out from there.
Okay.
So like right now, this vote is universal pass, and then if it doesn't pass, we will ask about universal pass with unmasking.
Sorry, is it majority that's winning this or is it like unanimous? What are we trying to decide?
I mean,
majority is how our votes work, isn't it?
Yeah, majority.
I mean, that kind of defeats the purpose of everything we've talked about.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know.
Well, there's been a motion and it's been
Asking
seconded,
why
so
we
let's
can't
vote.
If it has to be unanimous.
Okay. IVP? IVP?
Yes.
Oh, sweet. Okay. EVP? Okay, wait. I need to get this on my phone because I know I'm gonna fuck up the math.
Okay, are you ready?
Almost ready. Okay. IVP, EVP's no.
Okay.
Gen-
All right.
oh, sorry.
I didn't say my vote, so
Oh, I thought you said no. EVP.
I said yeah. I was going to say yes.
Okay. Gen Rep 1 is not here. Gen Rep 2?
This is for the universal pass.
Yeah.
I vote no.
Gen Rep 3?
No.
AAC?
Yes.
DEC?
No.
CSC?
Yes.
CAC?
Yes.
Facilities?
You mean FAC?
FAC?
Yes.
FSC?
No.
SWC?
No.
Transfer Rep?
Yeah.
International Student Rep?
No.
Okay. I'm counting. I'm so sorry. Okay, by a motion of 7 in favor to 6 against with 0 abstaining, the motion passes and USAC has voted in favor of a universal pass, no record system. So I think the immediate question I have is what my confusion was at the beginning of this conversation, which was the majority of us have voted. Brian, can you mute your thing? The majority of us have voted in favor of a universal pass no record system, yet we were writing a letter in the context of something that was not universal pass no record.
This is why I'm asking why we weren't voting to approve our letter. Like, what was the point of, I guess, this succession of votes if we were not going by this?
I was under the impression that we wanted more than just a narrow majority. 7-6 doesn't indicate to administration that we have like strong USAC support for this letter.
Correct. Okay, so like, then why did we hold that vote is what I'm wondering. Why are we not just requiring unanimous agreement on whatever letter we send out? Like,
is unanimous
all
agreement
want to be
possible?
unanimous.
I think we should do a consent item. We can do a consent item once we have the letter done.
Wait, but I'm also wanting to know what Jonathan and Mahika both brought up, which is like, is unanimous agreement going to be possible in this matter?
That's true. Does it, because like if people aren't going to unanimously agree on the letter in the first place, like even that vote doesn't work. So
I think closer to unanimous is better. Like 7-6 is literally almost split. Even if we can get what, like just 2 people against it or something, like I feel like that's a lot better than 7-6.
Yes. I will also say my vote was still very split. So I would say from my perspective, it would be 6-6.
If it was 6-6, I would break the tie in favor.
That the point is not whether your vote, Robert. The point is that there is a tie. And first of all, you were the one pushing for us to be unanimous. So I'm concerned with why all of a sudden you're like, it's 7-6, we can move forward. Like, I would strongly encourage that we just go through the letter again, make sure that everything looks okay, and like our vote be amended and that we approve this letter.
I think going back to the question is, what will be a unanimous vote or close to unanimous?
I think what would make it unanimous would be going through the letter,
Okay.
right?
So someone can motion that. I did not make these motions.
Okay,
I think we can edit the letter though. I don't think the letter's ready to pass as signed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, would we still be willing to consider like other compromises, like
Orion,
universal
I think
academic
we're-
renewal?
I think we need to close up the letter. Almost, we're very close. I think we just need to work on the first paragraph and it's done.
I think also for the people who spent hours on this letter and have deliberated like for the past week now, that's like somewhat offensive to all of us because we've worked really hard on this and we're for the most part like we've each contributed to this letter. So I think that we should just focus on this one.
But if we have something that we can, like a compromise that we can agree on, then I think that would make
Do
it
you
better
want
for
to
all of us.
make Orion? I would suggest you make a motion to see if anyone cares to take you up on your thing, so that way we can move forward and you can just like stop bringing this up. Because
Well, the thing is about it is that no one has really commented
no
on
one,
it.
it's because no one agrees with it. Period.
Okay, I agree with Joanna that like Orion, if you want it brought up to a vote, like you can definitely motion for it to be brought up. Like I think council's not engaging with it as much because we focused a lot on like these solutions to this problem. So that's why there might not be a lot of engagement, but I understand that like if you view it as something that you think is important, should be included, like by all means you can motion to add it for a vote, like if you wish, or somebody else can. So
Well, I just want to be able to address people's like concerns with it if people have them before, like, you know, something should be discussed before we vote on it. And I think, you know, that's something that we very much should do, rather than just voting on things before people have, you know, the occasion to think it out. And no one has really thought this one over yet. So I want to encourage people to think it over before we just move on and vote on it. Because the thing is that this addresses the concerns on both sides that people have about, on one end, about people not being able to change their GPA, and on the other end, about people being damaged by this situation. Because this is a situation where, like, we have a lot of issues that the university like can't fix through this policy, such as people not having access. We can't just fix that by giving people a no pass. We cannot, you know, if people are facing different inequities, eviction, whatever, we can't just fix that by doing a universal pass. What we would have to do, what we can do is we can prevent them from having additional burdens by having a bad notation on their transcript. But for other people that do have access, they should still be able to work on it. And both you know, people on both sides are presenting those arguments. Why can't we have both?
Orion, my proposal does that by the week 10 deadline and the rules on curves. I really think that we're very close to, like, if not unanimous consent, then close to unanimous consent. And I don't think it's a good idea to start a new petition, considering we've worked on this one probably for a collective of about 12 hours, including this USAC meeting.
I just also want to add to Brandon's point too. I think it's incredibly offensive for you to say that we haven't been able to think this through, because a lot of us have been thinking this through. Our entire spring breaks, our entire finals week.
Yes, I've been doing this like all of my finals week. Some of us are also impacted students, and I don't think you need to tell people how to be impacted students or tell them how the reality of their own situation will affect them. Orion, like, you have not been present in our meetings or our conversations. So to stay here and tell people that they have not been deliberating this is quite frankly
I am
ridiculous.
not saying that you
We don't
haven't
have
been
to do this here
deliberating.
today because you do this like every week. Like, if you want a motion for your academic renewal, like, you should, so we can move on through it. But that's not productive.
okay, let's keep order. Just please type if you all want to speak. Orion, I'll look for your one in the group if you want to speak or make a motion. Brandon.
I'd like to look at the letter really quickly. The thing I really want to discuss is the hold on one second, I'm pulling it up again. The thing I really want to discuss is what percentage we want to. First of all, do we like the curve idea? I can explain it more, but basically the point is, like, students wouldn't be able to receive, like, I think we should make it so most students would not be able to receive a no record. So, like, massive amounts of, so like 5% of a class couldn't be eligible for a passing grade.
Wait, can you explain the 5% again?
Yeah, so basically I added a clause in. I just came up with this. So the mark of pass shall be defined as the score of 60% or higher. The point of that clause is to make sure that professors don't manipulate what pass is in a course. Because right now, a STEM professor could say a pass is 80%. And I'm going to make it so like 5% of the class gets a pass. So even with universal pass, it doesn't solve the problems of professors playing games with what a pass is and how many people can get a pass. So that's part one. Part two is and include at least 80% of the entire distribution of a course's roster as receiving a passing grade so that people aren't receiving no records with professors who are manipulating the system and trying to mass no record people. Basically, like make it so like the only two options is like pass is equal to an A and no record is equal to an F. Like that's what will happen if we do not define what percentage of students can get a no record.
Okay, Isabel had her hand up.
So hopefully this works a lot better. But I think that we need to look into like the percentages of students, like the percentages of passes in classes, because it definitely varies throughout. Like you're saying like 80% of the class is going to receive a pass. So we need to make sure that's like verifiable like across departments, like at least 80% of students are normally passing class.
Yeah. Brandon?
Sorry, I apologize for this is part of the problem with looking at previous data is that future data is not likely to match over it because I really think professors are not going to be we're imagining a world where like a traditional pass no pass system is used, but when everybody the default is pass no pass, professors can change the goalposts of what that looks like. So I think we need to I mean any previous data we would look at is not necessarily representative because it's not assuming that it's assuming that most people are on letter grades, which they wouldn't be. Even
No,
under,
yeah, no, I agree with that. But like we can look at grade distributions and see who is normally getting like a C and better in
okay,
department or in specific classes.
my apologies.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I understand.
No,
I just the one issue with it is like, for example, North Campus classes have a much nicer distribution than South Campus classes.
yeah, so we'll look at like the hardest classes on campus and we'll say like, okay, like that's the minimum. Like, that's the class where students are typically doing the worst. Because like, you know, whatever scan 50 that like people take because like everyone gets an A plus or whatever like that on a good basis. Like you mentioned, whatever I don't know, like biology.
Orion, your audio.
As a class that like people traditionally like struggle. But yeah, I don't know if that makes sense or like is feasible at all.
I think it is. I just think like because it would take a good amount of effort, some council members should be wrapping up the letter while some council members are specifically figuring out what that number should be.
I mean, I can, if like you guys tell me some classes, like I can look up like distributions on what is it, Broomlock? Does that still exist?
Yeah, no, it is. Can I think it would be better if STEM council members did it.
Yeah, I mean, like whatever, someone can do it.
Millen?
Yeah, I'm very confused with all this like math and numbers thing because I just don't think that's the focus of what this conversation is. And maybe that's just because I'm tired because it's almost 2 a.m. in Chicago. But I just feel like we'd all be in support of like whatever is highlighted right here. And like the numbers can be determined later because like if we're just in support of the fact that we are trying to hold professors and departments accountable for like the number of passes that they have to give and like what they determine as a pass, I feel like we can vote on that. And then like the numbers game or whatever it is can be like determined later. But we should really focus on like the actual like tangible meat of this letter, which isn't this one bullet point.
One idea is also to Naomi's point about the academic senate. We just say that basically it's an idea, and I think like equity wise it would be helpful. We just say that it's past no record, but it's essentially impossible to receive a no record. And then the academic senate will go down from there.
Yeah, Millen and Isabel said she supports that.
If we just did maybe universal pass with an unmasking option, like that could be something else where like everybody gets a pass in the class that they take, and then they can decide whether or not they want to unmask their grade for a letter grade. Also an option.
Wait, could you say that one more time? Sorry.
Yeah, so universal pass, meaning that like every person that takes a class gets a pass. There's like no pass or no record. And then they can choose to unmask their option. Because I do like really agree with Naomi in that like the academic senate is conservative and we want to like approach them with, you know, something that is like the most far left or whatever it is. But we also want to make sure we're reflecting like student responses. So I feel like doing universal pass for everyone, like every single class is as a pass, and then they can choose to unmask.
Yeah, I mean, I would be in favor of that too. I mean, like Naomi said, we've both been on the calls with the chairperson of the academic senate, and I think that there is like a more conservative or like less willingness to move in any direction, like in any of these sort of directions. So I would say I'm definitely in favor of that. Joanna, and then
So like I don't know if we want to like approach them with just like a universal pass option because like I think that does take away a lot of like oversight by the professors, and I think it makes us look unreasonable and like we're asking like just way too much.
Yeah. Joanna, do you remember what you were going to say, or are you good? Okay. Brandon?
I proposed 80% originally. That's, I mean, I think Isabel brings up a good point. We can play around with the number. 75 to 80% though, like in most UCLA classes, that captures most of the people who are like I think that's a reasonable and fair assessment. We can make it larger if we want, but I think like if we want to like give a fair like what is a reasonable number of people that pass a class on average, I think that's like not unreasonable. But I do understand that the circumstances are different than normal. So like, I'm fine with, I think it's, I get like it might make it sound like asking too much, but I also think like we have a right to ask for a lot considering like what's happening in the world right now.
I'm wondering, Brandon, is there a way that is there a way we can ask the academic senate to let us know what like a, I know this is like kind of putting trust or faith into academic senate, but I also think they're going to do it regardless, is like maybe just encouraging them to put out guidance that doesn't, you and I talked about this earlier, that doesn't make it any more difficult for like they, because it's pass no pass, that they don't make it any more difficult to pass, basically. Like I know we've discussed this already, but is there a way to leave it?
We can put it up there that while professors maintain this is like, I'm literally just pulling this out of my butt right now. While professors maintain academic freedom in distributing, in assigning grades to students, professors should not change grading standards in spring quarter 2020 so as to be more stringent than they would in a normal quarter absent of the coronavirus pandemic.
Okay, so I think we should just do something, unless there's opposition. I think we should just do something like that instead of like trying to send numbers over to the academic senate, because I frankly just like Naomi works with them much more than I do, but I think that they just won't listen in that regard.
I think ask for that in general. I know it's not my turn, but I think we should ask, like, we should,
Yes,
that should be included regardless of whether they consider pass, no pass.
I agree.
Naomi, what do you think of the curve idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think the curve idea is necessary. I just, like y'all were saying, like, I don't know if that's something that the academic, like, I don't know if they would force numbers out into the air, or like, I haven't seen that happen.
What we can do, an idea is we can tell them to allow a passing grade for all students who would, on average, normally receive a pass during a UCLA course. So like they have that calculation somewhere. We probably don't have access to it tonight, but we can just say whatever that percentage is normally, you should use that exact same percentage to make sure that like we aren't changing what a pass looks like between quarters.
Yeah, Millen.
I just want to circle back to like my idea of universal pass for all classes, because if we do that, then I don't think that this bullet point would be necessary, or we can add it as like an alternative maybe, because like I also feel like this letter doesn't have to be just like one system, like we can offer alternatives because it's just our recommendation of what they should consider. But I do want to like just get council's input on like a universal pass system where like students just receive a pass for all their classes.
The only thing I would say to that is I remember I brought this up, I think, in our meeting the other day, but the accreditation process. So like my worry, I already forgot who said it. I'm sorry, I'm really tired, but somebody had mentioned that like if we approach them with that, it might just seem like really unreasonable, and therefore like my only concern with that would be like, because I do feel the like negotiation type of thing, but I have let chairperson Moran's know that like when I was on the phone, I was like, yo, it's possible we might move to this system of wanting, because we had drafted the letter at that point. I said like it might be possible that we move to a system of pass no record as a default, but then still with the option for students to reveal their letter grades. And while he couldn't obviously make any guarantees at all, he seemed much more willing to discuss that than universal pass no record with no exceptions. So part of me thinks that it would be a driving away force for us to do universal pass, because he might just view it as the academic senate, not just him, would view it as unreasonable or a like, silly ask in terms of like accreditation. So that's my only concern. Lily and then Millen again.
Yeah, I think that a universal pass, like not like everyone passes, kind of like there's a flaw in that argument, because like several people in council were talking about how not having a letter grade would not motivate students. So that would still theoretically apply if it was everyone just passes. Like,
yeah,
I'm not understanding the logic.
I mean, yeah, my logic was that like it would be universal pass for everyone with an unmasking option. So the motivation would be that they can unmask to receive that letter grade. So a lot of students would still have motivation to like try hard and do well. But I agree, Robert, because I think that conversation was with me actually, the accreditation like concept, and it's been what I've been saying. I just said this in like response to Naomi's, which says that like the academic side is really conservative, so we can maybe approach them like with the most radical option and still consider student input we can. But I also agree that like universal pass by itself might also risk like the transcript notation thing.
True,
So
yeah.
I am still in favor of pass no record as well, but just wanted to throw that option out there.
No, I appreciate it. Brandon?
So I don't think we need the transcript notation for the system to work at all. I also think the point of adding this clause in is to protect students. Like our entire conversation is to protect the students who are most disproportionately impacted by the coronavirus in a variety, like whether they're immunocompromised or whether they get it or whether their family member gets it or whether they don't have Wi-Fi or whatever it might be. I fix the clause so that it reflects what I was saying before, and I think this would capture what we were going for.
Okay, we can all take a minute to review it real quick. So you're talking about the highlighted portion?
This part, I mean, we all agreed on the first highlighted bullet. The second one is the one I was talking about. I
Yeah.
can change around the wording a little bit, but the
Where's the part that you said, Brandon, where you were like, as to not make it more difficult? Like, if
we didn't put that in yet, but I can add it in as we speak.
I mean, unless there's opposition, I think that would be good to include. It's like what I've heard so far from council members. Other thoughts? Are we generally looking more in favor for this?
I assume we need to fix the first paragraph, but the rest is fine.
Oh yeah. We need to like talk about that still because that needs to be changed. Millen, did you just?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, I think the first paragraph's like the only thing that we probably don't all agree with. Right now, I think it still says narrow petition. So I don't know, like if we should vote on that, if we should just consider like changing it to just petition or like getting rid of the petition as a whole. I think those are our three options.
I don't. Oh, are we still going by order?
Yeah. But Jonna, you can go. I mean, you're next.
Well, going back to Millen's point about like the petition stuff, I think it's that so long as like there's no deadline to submit a petition, should be fine. And if it, you know what, I forgot what I was gonna say. I was trying to like get it back by talking, but I didn't get it back. So you could skip me.
Isabel.
I only have tuned into the with my Wi-Fi.
Oh, we can't hear you, Isabel.
Re-explain why your petition is. Oh, that's awesome! I love that.
I added the clause in.
Isabel's asking, can someone explain why the narrow petition is now something that we don't want? My impression is that some council members want it and some council members don't. Lily, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I think like I originally advocated for the petition process, but we've been going in circles for hours, and like if a petition is just going to be more bureaucratic and more like less, I don't know what I'm trying to say. If it's not going to be worth it, then I don't see a point.
I personally am like, because like since I mean I'm in favor personally, I support universal pass altogether, but it's like very nuanced, so different conversation. It's just like the petition, I think my reasoning was like if it bureaucratically could be bad, I'm wary of that one, but I also think that if there's going to be a petition at all, as like if there's universal transcript notation, then that's hopefully less harmful as long as that remains. I just personally didn't see the point, I guess, like if this was going to essentially be an opt-in system of making it harder than necessary. I don't know if I explained that well, but I was like, what is the point of a petition if it already exists that you can unmask your grades?
I thought it was the process, or yeah, was the petition something different, or
The petition, I think it was like separate from like there being the process to unmask. The petition like required you to need to meet a specific threshold versus just wanting to unmask your grades, which yeah, like I don't necessarily feel in favor of that, but like if we're going to do that, I don't see any reason to make it more difficult just for the sake of being difficult. Like either unmasking exists or it doesn't, is why I wanted to remove the petition.
I think I agree with Kalechi.
Okay, Millen and Brandon.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what I said before about like why my viewpoint on like the petition has changed in the past few days is just because of like the student responses and the input that we received. Because I just feel like, at least my purpose in this letter is to get as many students on board with it so that we don't have like that much opposition that would discredit the letter. And I personally, and it's just my opinion, that I feel like a petition to unmask would still like warrant a giant student like opposition to this letter and would discredit it. And I also just feel like based on the student responses we've gotten, like a narrow petition still isolates like the students that just want to show academic improvement, and the students that like maybe they don't need to raise their GPA to meet a certain requirement, but they want to show academic improvement to help them in a graduate program or a job. And so I just feel like it again takes away like the choice from students in that sense, which is why my viewpoint on it changed.
Brandon?
One other concern I have is that students, so like non-first gen students might literally just fish for like academic programs that they're not necessarily interested in to boost their, to get the right to unmask, because you cannot unmask. So like once you find some program that meets a GPA threshold that you would be close enough to, basically there's no way from stopping from somebody for using it for something completely different. And like people who know, like who have like either more family members or they know the system better, they have an inherent advantage there. So I really think like the petition process actually is against the spirit that I think most council members are going for.
Okay, I need to use the restroom and get a drink. So Joanna, can you chair?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, who's next? All right, if no one wants, so I guess, can I get like, to make my life easier, is there any opposition to changing the part about petitions as is written in the letter?
I think Isabel said.
No. Oh, Isabel, you should for sure type whatever you're saying. We can't hear anything that you're saying. Okay, I was just gonna say if there's no opposition to that, I was gonna ask if there's any other issues that anyone else has with the letter right now, so we can discuss that, or if it looks fine for now.
Can I read for a little bit?
Yeah. I would recommend everyone just like reread through it, like skim it again. And then when someone is ready, like at like 12 or whatever, in 2 minutes, someone can motion.
I just highlighted, by the way, the sections that would just, if we didn't keep it, what would be eliminated. But it can stay the same otherwise.
Isabel asked if we can motion to remove the petition to unmask. And thank you, Joanna. Does somebody want a motion for that, just so we can vote on it?
I motion to remove the sub bullet reading there should be no deadline to submit a petition so as not to affect underclass students potentially applying to programs in the future.
Wait, are we removing the petition part 2, Mahika? The actual bullet point 2, like a narrow petition process?
Wait, does that mean that we're making it so that you can't petition at all, or that it's not narrow, the petition?
So there would be an unmasking. I think what Isabel, correct me if I'm wrong, what you were asking is if we can remove the petition process from the unmasking section.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to motion for.
Wouldn't we be removing the bullet point, that like second to last one, that requires you to submit evidence of exhaustion thresholds?
Yeah. Sorry.
Masking is still technically like a petition, but like.
And the
We
language.
need that though. Actually, we need to just edit it.
I think we should just motion to say, let's remove the petition process from unmasking.
I motion to remove the petition process from unmasking.
Thanks.
Second.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm gonna have to count again. Ooh. Okay. IVP.
Wait, to clarify, what are we voting on again? I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. We're motioning to remove the petition process from unmasking people's grades. So removing the petition process from that.
Okay. I abstain.
Okay. Okay. EVP. Joanna?
All right. I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. Gen Rep 1. Okay. Ryan, or sorry, Gen Rep 2. Gen Rep 2.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. So to just to clarify, this is to make sure that you can do unmasking without a petition.
Yes.
Okay, I vote yes.
Okay. Gen Rep 3.
Yes.
Okay. AAC.
Abstain. I don't know enough.
Okay. CEC.
Yes.
Okay. CSC.
No.
CAC.
Abstaining.
Okay. Facilities or FAC.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
So it's a motion to remove the petition process from the unmasking process.
Abstain.
Okay. FSC
Yes.
and SWC.
Yes.
Transfer rep.
Yes.
I think that was a yes. International student rep.
Yes.
Okay. By a motion of 7 to 1 to 5 abstentions, the motion passes and we have voted to remove the petition process from unmasking. Okay. So now we just need to clear up the language in the letter to reflect that.
Robert, may I speak?
Yeah. Sorry. I didn't see
No
it.
problem. I don't mean to. I already highlighted the green section. If you just cut that, and then just instead of saying, no, we need that bullet point actually. Bring it back, whoever deleted it. To unmask grades.
Okay, so my question is, do I, unless there's conflict still, I feel like the letter is almost finalized in terms of what we're like advocating for, and we have 3 other agenda items for tonight. So I'm like just wondering, do we want to like we can we can vote on the letter to approve it, assuming it will be changed to what we had already voted on, like the changes stipulated. So
The only thing
because
we
I
should,
want to get to those other agenda items because they're also pressing. So like maybe I don't know what process you all suggest. Yeah, Brandon.
the only thing we should include is that this is the, I believe we basically created the University of Michigan model. So we should say that we're endorsing their model and UCLA should implement exactly that. Or not
We're
actually not.
endorsing it minus the delayed component, right? They can unmask during the quarter.
And also we've put in more equity provisions like to make more, to protect more students who would be hurt by coronavirus than Michigan did. So that wouldn't be true. Like I don't believe Michigan did any of the yellow.
Yeah. Naomi, the links in the group me, I think, the new one that Lily had sent. Do you see it, Naomi?
I see it now.
Okay, sweet. Okay, so I'm also wondering one other thing. There were questions from students about winter 2020 and students' ability to like retroactively change those to be pass no pass. Um, have we thought about that or considered putting that in the letter? It's just something I've received a lot of questions about. So
I think we can. I don't see why it's oh, sorry.
yeah, Millen and Brandon, and also Orion said, "Wait, I don't see anything about Michigan's required delay." It's right. They can. My understanding is they can unmask at the end of the semester. So that's the language that I remember. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it says. Millen and Brandon.
I just first wanted to echo what Brandon said about how like saying that it's similar to U Michigan's system would help us and that like it would show admin that other administrations doing it. I also just want to gauge like council's opinion on UC Berkeley did like the opt-in system, which is not the same as the one we're doing, but it might help to show, and maybe just Naomi can maybe voice this instead of just having it in the letter, but can show that like a fellow sister institution of the UCs has done it, to encourage them to not stick to the status quo and to like make necessary changes that we're stating. In terms of like winter grading, I think it wouldn't hurt to like have a bullet point in this letter about winter grading as well, because I feel like this is like a letter about, what is it, education and equity, so that can show that we're advocating for winter and spring.
Yeah. Oh, wait, there's a line. Let me.
Yeah, no, Naomi, you're good. You go.
Okay. I was going to say too, in the original email that I sent to the chair of the academic senate, I had included information about retroactive drops. He said along with like Zoom recorded lectures, that will be one of the more difficult ones. I'm not sure why, and we have like yet to discuss it. But I do think we should add it. I just wanted to let y'all know that he said that that is one of the ones that he's not like at liberty to talk about because I don't know like what that would entail.
Yeah, I would also just add that like even though academic senate might not be able to do anything, Naomi, maybe we could take an approach again of getting admin to strongly encourage like professors to allow them to retroactively change to pass no record, because I'm assuming my impression is that professors can do that. They can send updated grades to the registrar. So like maybe we should include it even though we're not entirely sure about like what that actually translates into. Is that something that you're okay with?
Yeah, I think we should include it. I'm just saying I think like maybe me and you, Robert, can talk to Michael again and like understand especially going in advocating for this, because it's the same thing with like academic freedom regulations. Like I don't know why he's saying that that's a hard thing to accomplish. Does that make sense? Like I understand why Zoom recording is hard to enforce, why they wouldn't enforce it, or why they can't. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
I have no idea. I think like maybe at minimum they should strongly encourage it. I think we're advocating for it to be enforced though. So yeah. Okay. So it sounds like we're generally on the same page. So I feel like we should do a vote on this too about winter quarter then. Is if that's the impression that I'm getting, does somebody want to vote for that?
Wait, what are we? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, what are we do? What about winter quarter?
Oh, okay. We kind of veered off to the recording / retroactively changing, but I'm pretty sure all of us got concerns from students about their ability to retroactively change their grades from winter quarter to pass no record. And Naomi, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were saying that you had brought it up with Chairperson Morans, and they said that just they didn't know if it was possible, basically, similar to recording. Is that right?
No, not that they didn't know it was possible. He just said that that is a more complex and complicated issue,
Oh, okay.
meaning it's not going to be like a straightforward yes. And if it's the same reasons why they wouldn't enforce Zoom recording lectures for legal reasons, I would say it would be like, I'm just saying it's going to be a hard thing to do. And I want to know like why before saying we need to like force it.
So what do you envision the language looking like maybe in the letter?
Encouraging.
Okay. Okay, so does someone want to make a motion then saying like we're adding language to
Or strongly urging. I think
Yeah.
encouraging is a little
No, you're good. So a motion to strongly encourage administration to allow students to retroactively change their winter quarter grades to pass no record. Millen.
I motion to strongly advocate for administration to what is it? Retroactively reconsider grades for winter quarter.
I second.
All in favor? Oh wait, no, we're not doing all in favor. Sorry. It's late.
Are we dancing?
God.
IVP.
Yes.
Okay. EVP.
Yeah.
Gen Rep 1's not here. Gen Rep 2. Gen Rep 2.
Sorry. So this is optional, right?
It's a vote.
It's the vote for to allow students the ability to change their winter quarter passing record. Yeah.
Right, and that's a choice on the part of the student.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yes.
Gen Rep 3 is not here. AAC.
Yes.
Oh, hi, Gen Rep 3. Yes.
Sorry, I'm here. Yes.
Okay. AAC. AAC.
She said yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. CC. Is my volume not working? CEC vote yes. Okay, I'm gonna assume CEC is not here. CSC.
Yes.
Okay. CAC.
Yes.
FAC.
Yes.
FSC.
Yes.
SWC.
Yes.
Transfer. Oh, no?
She voted yes
Oh,
via
okay.
sign language,
Oh,
right?
sorry. Do not understand sign language. Shahama?
Yes.
Sweet. Okay, by a motion of 1, 2, 3, 4.
Tara said yes.
With Tara, by a motion of 13 to 0, the motion passes, and we are including language to strongly encourage administration to allow for students to retroactively change their grades to pass no record for winter 2020. Great. Okay. With that, now that we've changed, unless there's other additions to change the components of the letter, I feel like we can vote on the letter with the amendments and then move on, unless other people want to add stuff.
Can we add one thing about Michigan?
Like a citation, Brandon?
Or just say like this model is significantly this model was significantly like not influenced but like is similar to the University of Michigan model, something like that. I don't care.
Okay, yeah, I don't even think we need to vote on that. I think unless somebody has opposition, we can just include that language since it's not a recommendation from council. Okay, so then Isabel's typing something, and then Millen also. Oh, Isabel said, can we add something about mid-quarter evaluation of courses, professors, so that the university has data across the board? Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
Someone-
I don't think there's opposition.
Is there any opposition to that? We don't have to do a motion. Okay, if there's no opposition, then we'll also add something. We'll add a statement about mid-quarter evaluations of courses and professors so that the university has data across the board. Are you, Isabel, are you saying that you want a mid-quarter evaluation? Like, that's what we're saying, right? Yeah, okay, gotcha. Thank you, Isabel. Okay. Are there any other amendments? Or have we all read through the letter extensively? I mean, we can still change it after this, but with the ideas and the requests that are in it. Yeah, Millen?
I just want to clarify so I know what I'm agreeing to, but did we change or like get rid of the deadline or like the starting point for unmasking? Or is that still there? I just can't find it. There should be, yeah, there's no deadline, but does it start at a delayed point or does it start when like the quarter starts?
Did we decide on that?
I don't think so. I think it was like up in the air and then we talked about other things.
Because we did bring up how the concern with people switching back and forth from letter grade.
Oh yeah. So
But-
we can,
Yeah.
like I can suggest that we have it start at any point when the quarter starts and then we include a bullet point that says like students can retroactively change their decision to unmask to pass no record depending on like their progress.
Anybody else have a suggestion on that? Okay. We can just do we want to do a vote for this or just opposition?
Can we have like a 1 or 2 minute reading period just to read through the whole letter?
Yeah.
But we're gonna do it for the starting point, right? Should we do that first before we read over?
Yeah. I think we should decide what we're doing as far as the starting point.
I can like repeat what I said if you want.
Is there a reason, Millen, why we're not doing like my question is just like a starting period during week 5 just to avoid like some of the unneeded like if like just if someone like changes like it avoids the unneeded like I think component of that. And also my impression is that if it's like a universal unmask policy, I don't think that would like delay students' ability to access their grades really.
Yeah, I'm fine with either one. Like week 5 is good with me too. I just like want to make sure that students understand they still have the opportunity to unmask even though it's delayed, and I don't want students to be like ticked off that they're still restricted by that, like, you know what I mean? Because I feel like students like having classes for 5 weeks that are past no record that like might cause anxiety for them that if they want a letter grade. And so if we just want to give them that choice to choose it further like closer to the beginning of spring quarter, I don't know if that would really be detrimental to anyone. But that was just like my reasoning. I think I'm fine with either one. So
Anybody else feel a certain way? I think we'll go. Does anybody have an opinion on this?
I guess like, does anybody like favor week 5 over week 1? Maybe that's the better question.
That's a fair question. Yeah.
Can you repeat that one more time? So week
Yeah.
5.
So the two options are to have the unmasking option start at the beginning of the quarter, and they can like retroactively change that decision. Students can retroactively change their decision to switch from letter grades to pass no record throughout the quarter, or to have the unmasking option start week 5. And I think we should still include that same bullet point of being able to change their decision. But I guess it's just between like having unmasking start week 1 or week 5.
Personally, I think week 5 might be better just logistically, so that there aren't people who end up like going back and forth because like we said, we anticipate people's situations or circumstances possibly changing as this gets worse. So I mean, the option is still there regardless. I think making it later might be better just logistically, so that 5 weeks is like not a ton of time, but it's more time for people to kind of figure out like if they actually need it or want it or not, versus like they do it week 1 and then like throughout the whole quarter, like it's going back and forth and it's a mess.
I also wanted to tack onto that too, that that's very similar to like the petition style that we have now. Like week 6 is usually the last time that you can declare like pass no pass for a class. So it would be very similar. We could even think about pushing it to like week 6 because that's after most midterms happen.
I was gonna say week 6 too.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah, most as consistent as possible with like current policies.
Yeah, I also like, and this just came to my mind, is that like students actually don't even have their letter grades until the end, so it wouldn't necessarily matter because they would just get their points. So yeah, I'm good with week 6 then.
Okay. Is there any opposition then to just making it week 6 as the starting point for when students can unmask their request to unmask their grades?
Are we still gonna have the retroactive thing?
For winter quarter?
No, sorry, for spring quarter, like even if it's week 6, are we still gonna offer
yes.
that?
I think so.
Mhm.
If something unexpected comes up,
Wait,
which
wait.
is likely to be those cases. Orion?
Oh, after semester ends, can you see like what your letter grade is before you do pass no record versus letter grade?
So
I can answer that question.
Yeah.
No, you cannot.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's what it says too.
But we agreed a long time ago with like unlimited time.
Because
knowing what your grade is at the liberty of the professor. So they can say, hey, if you want to unmask, you will get an A, but they don't have to. Like they and like you may be able to guess your grade based off of points, but there's no like universal way to enforce any of that.
So it could be like a year later, and then you come back and say, "Oh,
letter with the amendments. It doesn't have to be done right now. We can complete it after we vote, just with the amendments and the suggestions we had.
Oh, what was the mandatory transcript notation? Oh, wait.
Can I take this one?
Oh, yeah.
The mandatory. Oh, go ahead, Brandon. Sorry.
No, Kaleshi, you can go. It's fine.
A pass, no record grading system so that it doesn't basically end up
And is the no deadline thing?
The starting point for week 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should include that there.
All right, I'm gonna start writing, and if it's wrong, you can edit.
Okay.
I'm
Are
gonna
there
literally
other
write the
amendments, or
starting
can we
point.
vote to approve this letter?
I motion to approve the letter as amended.
Or with the amendments,
Yes,
because
with amendment.
it's
Sorry.
not amended yet. Yeah. Okay.
I second.
Okay. Where's mine? IVP. Okay, we'll come back if IVP's here. EVP.
Yeah.
Gen Rep 1 is not here. Gen Rep 2.
Yes.
Gen Rep 3.
Yes.
Gen Rep. No, that's a lot of Gen Reps. AC. AC. Naomi. Okay, we'll come back. CEC.
Yes.
CSC.
Yes.
CAC.
Yeah.
BAC.
Yeah.
FSC.
Yeah.
SWC. SWC. Okay. Transfer. Transfer student rep. Isabel. Oh, okay, that's a yes. And then international student rep.
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, I'm gonna go back to IVP, and who else did I miss? There was an SWC. IVP and SWC.
Yes.
Oh, sweet. Yes. Okay. SWC. Okay.
Wait.
By motion of 10.
Beginning of
Sorry?
the end of week 6, right?
Beginning of week 6.
Or the beginning of week. Okay, it's fine.
Okay. By a motion of 10 to 0 to 1, the motion passes and the letter is approved. Okay. Are we good? Can we move on to the next agenda item?
What needs to be done tonight and what can be pushed?
I think
truthfully and honestly.
Okay, commencements can be pushed. I think. I just had a phone call today with Pat about it. SIOC CRC budget reports. Lalo's not here, and that can be pushed. USAC budget funding. That's important, but can be pushed, I guess. I mean, what do you all think? I mean, this is just my opinion, so.
I I would want Vong and Roy to be here for that conversation, and I think they have left because it's 12:30 a.m.
Yeah.
It's 3:30 a.m. in
I was
Kentucky.
just gonna ask Naomi how they felt about this because I know, well, also Lily, because apparently all three of us have a lot of money that we are trying to figure out how to do. I think Kalechi also mentioned something, but I think specifically I would want to ask a lot of questions with Naomi because we have similar grants that we want to look into using, and I'm pretty sure whatever answers we specifically get will apply to the both of us.
So do we want to, Joanna, do you have a
Oh,
preference?
no, Kim's
Waiting.
right. Wong's not here, so we can't even ask any questions.
Yeah,
I
also,
agree.
like Dr. Geller would be productive to this conversation too.
Yeah. Okay, so is there anything we need to do tonight? Kalechi, looks like.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I don't know if Roy's still here because Roy's the one with the answers.
I don't think he is.
Yeah. Haha.
I was gonna mention too that um the money that's in my office that isn't tied to like referenda fee that I can like move around because like I have the ability to move stuff from academic success referendum to like educational programming. I'm going to move that money to the Books for Bruins scholarship so that I can continue to allocate um, books in a more like accessible way. I know that in the past we've done ASCCLA textbook gift cards, but since you can't, there's like no way to use a promo code online, we're thinking of like going another route and seeing if we can do like Visa gift cards or something of that nature. So it's a more flexible grant and it also allows for like students to do what they need to do.
Wait, I have a question for
Lily?
Naomi.
Yeah.
Do you still have that money TGIF gave you for the course reader recycling?
It was never placed into my account.
You should have the money for that, and you can do a budget transfer with TGIF funds, like with my consent. So you could just put that into Books for Bruins too.
Oh, okay. Jessica said the account is TGIF.
Jessica said it was put in your account.
Yeah, okay. I guess it's okay. I'll have to look at the budget report again. I think she's saying it's under TGIF.
Mm.
And I would
Yes, that's correct. So the way TGIF works is any allocation that somebody receives from TGIF will be under TGIF's account. So when you access that money, what you need to do is when you fill out the rec form, you need to use your 21-digit account number from TGIF specifically. But the money's been allocated and that account is open.
Okay.
Could we still theoretically apply that for Books for Bruins since it didn't get used for its original purpose, like fall quarter or whenever we started this?
Yeah, I think it can be used for to contribute to the textbook scholarships, but what that would look like, it wouldn't be a budget transfer from TGIF to AAC. It would be instead filling out a rec form for however you're purchasing these gift cards, and you would just use TGIF's account number to make that purchase through the rec, if that makes sense. We can chat offline about this too if you need more help with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything pressing that needs to be talked about? Oh, Brandon, yes.
It's not pressing. It's just I have basically my entire budget available. I want to help the student workers, and I also, Naomi, if you'd like to talk about how I can give some money to Books for Bruins, and also this is a question for I don't know if anybody knows. I have some like capital contingency money that can't even be spent right now anyway. So I mean, I can discuss this with like finance people later, but like I'm happy to discuss if anybody wants to about transferring some of my budget money over as well.
Not sure if you can spend money that's been allocated to you on anything other than what it was allocated for. But you're
I mean,
also
I can buy a printer. I got it was for like art, but I can order it and like
ask for you all, and it's just so some of us got surplus allocations to pay our office staff. And I think like I'm confused about how to move forward with that. So Jessica, I don't know if you've thought on that or any other council members that are like planning to pay their office staff to some degree or like just give them a stipend. Um, that's my concern is how to do that now. I was gonna like do gift cards or something.
wait, are you asking if people should continue to stipend them, or is it specifically like a surplus question?
Like, well, I want to stipend them. Like I'm planning, I want to give them that support still. I just don't know how at this point. Kind of, yeah.
I don't have any like verified suggestions or something, but I know what I've been talking about with like my soul advisor and like what I was bouncing with Roy was because CAC has like a shit ton of money left over since JRF isn't happening. At least the quickest way that I know is through gift cards, so that might be a feasible way to go through. Like this obviously
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
As far as disseminating money to people, like to kind of stipend them, I was planning on doing that via like Visa gift cards is a good possible one.
Okay, so I'll just talk to Jessica offline about that.
I believe that Nadia said that we couldn't do gift cards.
We can as honorarium, just not as payment. Is that
We
right?
absolutely can. We can do them like for giveaways or for like honorarium stuff and like whatever. It's just I don't know if Nadia meant like you can't ask contingency to buy you one or something, but like
you can't do it through HR either.
Okay, yeah, no, you can't do it through HR, but like your office can definitely do gift cards, like as
No, as in she said like she would not approve any. She said that she would not approve like any of the what are those called, rec forms for gift cards.
I don't think that's her discretion at that point. Like I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
We've all done it.
Yeah, like
we also overruled
like 4 gift cards from like this year, so
No, like for anything. And I think Vong also said that too.
that's a yikes because
I mean, Ryan, just to like
gift cards then.
Yeah, we can vote like to as council, we can vote to allocate that money however we want. Like even if Nadia said no, we could still like do it as council.
Right, but we need her signature, don't we, on the rec forms?
Yeah, we do, but like regardless, because I think it's semantics, honestly, if like Nadia said that or won't buy gift cards or not. I think in this situation and this extenuating circumstance, I don't see Nadia saying you're trying to be fun for this pandemic and I'm not going to sign gift cards when you have like Roy's permission and like SJ's permission to do so or something. Like
also Nadia is no longer the chair.
Right. She left and she graduated.
It's David.
Yeah.
Either way, I don't think FICOM is going to say we will not allow you to stipend people or provide support.
Also, just a quick Fernando, I got a package in my name. Can you open it and see what it is? It got delivered to ASUCLA. Thank you.
Okay, are there any pressing things? Now we're gonna table all 3 of the items till next Tuesday.
Wait, circle back.
What's
So, not that I'm saying we should change anything if it isn't happening, but the discussion of extending spring break is like not on the table anymore, or was that?
It's in the letter.
It's in the letter,
the
right?
letter. We approved it. Yeah.
But my head is fuzzy. It's long. I feel like rereading over and over and over again.
No problem. All the stuff we discussed
I
previously.
thought it was in there, but I didn't feel like looking.
Everything we discussed previously about spring break and the other issues are still in there.
Thank you. I still want to look.
Wait, what? I didn't see that one.
Just read it.
It's all in the letter. It's all in bold.
Oh, wait, there it is. Wait, okay, well, I didn't agree with that.
The vote has been taken.
Sir, you do have to educate yourself on your vote. Like, I don't know.
You should have read it before the vote, dude.
I thought we just were making changes to the top, and
We made an explicit vote to approve this letter.
can I motion to remove that section from the bottom?
I mean, you can motion to remove it.
You second? Okay. Okay. 1 second. I'm going down
Get out your vote call.
my vote call. Okay.
Wait, I'm sorry. What is? Can we repeat?
Orion
wants
motion
to-
to remove the part about spring break from the letter.
All right, we can vote.
We're letting him motion. So.
IVP.
No.
EVP's not here. Gen Rep 1's not here. Gen Rep 2.
Yes.
Gen Rep 3.
To be clear, this is to remove the provision.
About spring break.
No.
AC.
No.
CEC. Is CC here? I don't think CC's okay. CSC.
No.
CAC.
No.
FAC.
No.
FSC.
No.
SWC. Transfer student rep. No. And international student rep.
No.
Okay, by a motion of 1 to 9 to 0, the motion does not pass, and we will leave the provision calling for the extension of spring break on the letter. Okay. Oh yeah, Brandon. Yeah.
Sorry, one last thing about the letter before we leave. Because there were either members who weren't here, or who did not vote in the affirmative on the letter, should we still keep the entire council as signing in?
As is the case with a
Don't
resolution.
we sign council off? Don't we sign the entire council off of a simple majority?
Yes.
Like, I'm not saying an evaluative judgment of what we should do if people feel differently, but like, that's literally nothing new, correct?
Correct.
I'm just saying we can either remove the names or like have it reflect.
I think we should keep it just because, like, it's a council vote.
Okay.
I mean, it's up to you. I mean, Brandon, if you have a different
I
opinion.
voted yes. It's just more like, I mean, people, we can discuss. I don't know if they're probably asleep. We can ask them tomorrow morning if they want to be on the letter, or if people have returned to the call who didn't vote, or if they want to remain off. That's up to them.
I think we could do that, but I'm also just gonna say, like, I thought the point was that this was unanimous support. Otherwise, the first vote that we had taken when we were asking about who's in favor of pass or whatever, like universal pass or things like other things, would have been how we had moved. I thought we signed on to
touch anything. I just want to make sure we're not signing off for people on stuff like they don't. Do you understand what I mean? Like,
but
but it's also like
a council vote.
That being on council means that a council majority can be representative of council, even if I don't agree. Like, that's how it's always worked.
I think he's saying like to add their names. Is that what you're saying, Brandon?
Yeah,
To the
just
scriptures?
basically to have their name on it. If like
Yeah, I mean, I think if they voted, then they should have their name, right? If they voted in favor, like we're all adults, we know what we're voting for.
I think
I
what
just
we're
want to echo what Kelechi was saying. If that was the case, then we could have went with like the point of the compromise was so that we would use
unanimously everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
I agree.
okay. I voted yes, so I don't care. It's just I wanted to make sure everybody else was okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think when we vote on resolutions, it represents council's opinion. So I think like this is honestly like a logistical thing. It's just like, do we include the names or not? Because council voted for a resolution. So I also agree strongly with Naomi that like that was the whole point of the compromise too, like, or else we'd be doing universal pass right now. So I just think like we should definitely probably move in that direction.
Yeah,
We can ask Villa. Yeah.
I was also going to say too, like that doesn't stop people from like being able to voice their opposition. Like I would say we're all individuals. We all have like our own opinions. I'm signing on to a letter that like I personally like. There's to me like I'm not in 100% complete support of it. Like there was still more I wanted to see from it, but I'm still allowing my name to be on there.
No,
I agree.
Naomi, of course. I was just saying like you should have the right either to keep it on or not if you want to. Like it's up to you.
I mean,
I
they
think
can
just to
erase it if they really want to, but I do think like we made a point of having a 5-hour meeting to make this unanimous, and I'd like to respect that because honestly, this council voted in a majority for universal pass versus what's actually in this letter, and so like by that logic, we'd be going on that, and I just really want it to be dead so we can go to sleep.
Yeah, I say we just keep everyone's signature there.
If they really
I'm
want to
going,
do it, they can take it off. Like,
I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm officially done.
I see what you're saying and where you're going, but I think it's
No problem. Thank you. Everybody have a wonderful evening.
Okay.
All
We're
right.
adjourning this meeting at 12:46 a.m. Good night, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye, Jonathan.
Bye, Jonathan. Good night to Jonathan only.
Well, I just haven't seen Jonathan. I miss him.
True.